Chapter 1305. Zhou landed on the edge of the stone artifact and glanced at the four apes. They didn't move at all, as though they didn't mind Zhou actions at all. Do you really want me to contract a guardian? Zhou looked at the stone cocoon in the stone artifact with a gloomy expression. It wasn't difficult to contract a guardian. As long as he met the physique requirements of a guardian, he only needed a drop of blood to complete the contract. Even if he couldn't meet the guardian's requirements, as long as the guardian was willing, he could still contract it. However, Zhou wasn't interested in contracting a guardian. He even felt some rejection. At the end of the day, guardians were tools that the dimension used to colonize Earth. It was somewhat similar to the cyborgs that humans had once fantasized about creating. Having a contract with such a creature meant that he could be betrayed at any moment. That feeling wasn't good. The main reason was that Zhou had too many secrets. If the Guardian learned of such a secret and secretly informed the dimension, who knew how the dimension would deal with him? If there were any other way, Zhou wouldn't contract a Guardian. Even if he wanted to contract one, it would be a master-slave contract like Demonic Neonate and Grim Demon. However, now that Zhou thought about it, it seemed like there was no other way. This dimensional zone was really strange. If he didn't contract it now, it looked like he couldn't leave. Zhou thought for a moment and felt that if he could leave, he could contract it first. After all, the Guardian contract was an equality contract. He could escape first and then think of a way to terminate the contract. This was the good thing about an equality contract. It wasn't particularly difficult to terminate it, so he could still think of a way. Survival is more important. With this in mind, Zhou skillfully condensed a finger beam and stabbed a needle hole on the finger of his other hand. He squeezed out a drop of blood and prepared to drip it onto the stone cocoon. Before dripping it, Zhou specially glanced at the four apes below. Seeing that they had no intention of stopping him, he steeled his heart and dripped the drop of blood onto the stone cocoon. Sigh, I was forced into a corner. I didn't really want to contract a guardian. Ancestors, don't blame me. If you want to blame something, blame your genes for being too outstanding, Zhou thought sadly. The blood had already dripped onto the stone cocoon, but it was too late for regret. However, in the next second, Zhou awkwardly realized that when his blood landed on the stone cocoon, it was like water falling into a pot of oil. It slid down with a whoosh, failing to stick to the stone cocoon at all. Zhou's mouth was agape, and he didn't come to his senses for a long time. What's going on? Didn't you want me to contract it? When Zhou gradually calmed down, he felt even more puzzled. If he wasn't supposed to be the one to make the contract, then what was the point of letting him up? The four apes had clearly agreed to let him come. For them to have such a reaction, it meant that they thought highly of Zhou. However, his blood could not trigger a reaction from the cocoon of the Guardian at all. This meant that he had not obtained the recognition of the cocoon of the Guardian, or that his bloodline and attributes did not meet the requirements of the Guardian. Could it be that the four apes were mistaken? Zhou muttered inwardly, but when he looked at the four apes, he felt that his thoughts weren't right. If Zhou were one of the apes, they would have swallowed it when they realized that they had made a mistake to avoid the awkwardness. However, the apes had no such plans. They were still waiting for something. What's going on? Zhou sized up the stone cocoon again. Upon careful inspection, he realized that there was indeed something different about the stone cocoon. Previously, Zhou had discovered that there were some faint gray patterns on the surface of the stone cocoon. They didn't look eye-catching and couldn't be seen without careful inspection. Previously, Zhou felt that the gray patterns were natural patterns on the stone cocoon. Now that he had taken a closer look, he realized that it wasn't the case. He realized that the gray patterns seemed to have been drawn by someone. Zhou didn't know what kind of paint it was. It was grayish like burnt paper ash. It was very tightly integrated with the stone cocoon, and the color was similar. Therefore, Zhou had previously imagined that the gray patterns were a part of the stone cocoon. However, upon careful observation, he realized that there were many places where the gray patterns were drawn with a brush. It was the kind of brush used in the ancient times of the East District. The painting also looked like an ink painting, but it was much fainter. It was as though it had experienced the baptism of time and was almost blurry. Drawing on the cocoon of the guardian? Zhou felt that this wasn't the work of someone who had nothing better to do. The painting on it likely had some purpose. He circled the edge of the stone artifact and seriously studied the gray patterns on the cocoon of the guardian. Although they were very faint, he could still roughly see them. However, Zhou didn't understand them. He realized that the gray patterns were a strange symbol. It was like a string of numbers that covered the surface of the cocoon of the guardian. The symbols were very unfamiliar. In any case, they weren't words or symbols that Zhou knew of. However, Zhou had a vague feeling that the string of symbols were like chains that wrapped around the stone cocoon as though they were locking it. Zhou guessed inwardly, could it be that these gray patterns have sealed the stone cocoon, preventing my blood from being absorbed by the stone cocoon? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was right. Zhou planned on giving it a try to wipe away the gray patterns before trying to contract it. Brothers Ape, do you want me to wipe away those gray patterns before contracting the cocoon of the guardian? Zhou was afraid that touching the stone cocoon would infuriate the apes, so he asked first. However, they still didn't say anything, as though they hadn't heard Zhou at all. These four fellows are too despicable. They clearly want me to do something, but they don't say anything or express anything. Zhou wished he could slay them all. It would be best if 4 companion eggs drop. In the future, he would buy a car without wheels and get the 4 of them to carry him around every day. Despite his thoughts, Zhou felt that he could give it a try when he saw that they didn't have any intention of stopping him. Therefore, he carefully flew into the stone artifact and slowly approached the stone cocoon. As he flew, he paid attention to their reactions. Seeing that they had no intention of stopping him, Zhou finally landed on the stone cocoon. The stone cocoon was about 4 to 5 meters in diameter. It wasn't small, so he didn't know what kind of guardian was inside. Since there were 4 apes guarding it, it was likely that there was a stone monkey inside. The legendary Monkey King seems to have popped out of a rock. Could this guardian be the Monkey King? Zhou was somewhat filled with anticipation. As a resident of the East District, it seemed like no one disliked the Monkey King. Among the 4 Chaos Monkeys, it was much more famous than the other 3. Chapter 1306. Wearing the dragon-imprisoned armor, Zhou landed on the stone cocoon and didn't sense any energy fluctuations. The gray patterns didn't react either. This made Zhou doubt his judgment. If the gray patterns really sealed the stone cocoon, there should be a protective mechanism. Now that there was no reaction at all, it made Zhou feel uncertain. He squatted down, bent down, and reached out to touch the stone cocoon. It turned out that he had only wanted to wipe the dust away so that he could observe the gray patterns more clearly. However, when he touched it with his hand, he actually wiped away many of the gray patterns. This gave Zhou a fright. Zhou was alarmed as he instantly flew up again. In midair, he sized up the stone cocoon and stone artifact, as well as the 4 apes. He remembered watching some movies in the past. Once some seals were destroyed by humans, the big boss inside would be released. At the same time, it would be accompanied by some dazzling light effect. There might even be earthquakes or mountain collapses. However, nothing happened after observing in midair for a while. The 4 apes didn't react, and the stone cocoon was very stable, just like before. Are these gray patterns really seals? Why did they disappear just by wiping them? I didn't use any strength at all. Zhou had an odd expression as he returned to the stone cocoon and tried wiping it again. The gray patterns seemed to be dust. They disappeared with a gentle wipe and he couldn't see any use. After wiping out a small area, the stone cocoon was already very clean. Zhou dripped another drop of blood on it and thought to himself, it should work this time. Slurp. Zhou blood slid down again without any intention of seeping through. The corners of Zhou eyes twitched. This was completely different from what he had imagined. I don't believe it. Zhou gritted his teeth and reached out to wipe away the other gray patterns. As he did so, he observed the reactions of the 4 apes and the cocoon of the guardian. There was no reaction at all. It made Zhou suspect that the gray patterns were really dust and not what he had imagined. As the gray patterns were wiped away, the 4 apes and the stone cocoon didn't react. However, Zhou suddenly felt the truth listener earring gradually heat up. This heat was very strange. It was different from when Truth Listener had used its powers to convert curses into primordial energy. Zhou didn't sense Truth Listener converting primordial energy at all. Instead, it was Truth Listener itself that produced some thoughts. Zhou looked at the stone cocoon in a daze before sensing Truth Listener's thoughts. Could it be that the 4 apes aren't interested in me, but Truth Listener? Zhou thought as he summoned Truth Listener. Truth Listener, which looked like a small golden monkey, landed directly on the stone cocoon after it came out. Without waiting for Zhou to give the order, Truth Listener grabbed the stone cocoon with its claws. Its claws were extremely sharp. Even if it did not shatter the earring, it still had strength at the peak of the mythical stage. But when its claws touched the stone cocoon, there was a clang. Sparks flew between its claws and the stone cocoon, but it did not leave a mark on it. Truth Listener seemed to be very anxious. Without Zhou orders, it automatically shattered an earring. With the shattering of the earring, Truth Listener's body began to change. It became huge and ferocious, completely different from its previous mini and cute appearance. Bang! Truth Listener attacked the stone cocoon again, but the outcome was the same. It failed to leave a mark on it. Without any hesitation, the Harken shattered the second earring, and the Harken's body became even more ferocious. Zhou watched Truth Listener attack the stone cocoon. Although he didn't know what was going on, he could tell that Truth Listener seemed to be very interested in the guardian inside the cocoon. However, he didn't know if its interest was a blessing or a curse for the guardian inside. As Truth Listener attacked the stone cocoon, Zhou had been observing the 4 apes below. Although the 4 apes still didn't move, their eyes were clearly different from before. It was as though they were glowing. Furthermore, their gazes were finally no longer on Zhou. Instead, they were staring at Truth Listener. No, it should be said that they had been staring at Truth Listener from the beginning. However, Truth Listener had been on Zhou's ear the entire time, so Zhou mistakenly believed that they were looking at him. I should have thought of it long ago. Monkeys naturally only know how to look at monkeys. How can they appreciate the beauty of humans? Zhou rubbed his lips in a self-deprecating manner, finding them a little dry. In the past, Truth Listener would shatter more than 4 earrings before it completely lost control and didn't listen to Zhou's orders. However, this time, it shattered the earrings. This was something that had never happened before. After the earrings shattered one by one, Zhou felt his connection with Truth Listener weaken. He couldn't help but feel worried. If this continues and Truth Listener completely loses control, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to retrieve it again. Zhou was in a dilemma. He wondered if he should forcefully unsummon Truth Listener now while he still had the chance. Crack! The 4th earring shattered. Truth Listener was already as terrifying as an ancient fiend celestial. Its strength instantly reached the peak of the terror grade, just short of advancing to the calamity grade. This time, its claws finally pierced through the stone cocoon. Zhou saw a golden light seep out from the crack in the stone cocoon. The golden light was crystalline and pure. It made one tremble. Purity made one feel beautiful, but if it was too pure, it would make one feel fear and evil. For example, a pure believer would make one feel that she was beautiful and kind. However, if she purely treated the teachings as the only rule in the world, it would make one shudder. The golden light in the stone cocoon gave Zhou such a feeling. It was so pure that it made one feel afraid. However, Truth Listener seemed to enjoy it. Its nostrils twitched as the golden light that seeped out of the stone cocoon's crack condensed into Truth Listener's nostrils like smoke before being sucked in. When the golden light entered its body, Truth Listener's golden fur seemed to come alive as it was dyed with a layer of pure, glass-like golden halo. Zhouwen was surprised to discover that his connection with Truth Listener seemed to recover a little. Truth Listener seems to be able to control its brutal consciousness. Is it because of the golden light? Zhouwen frowned as he looked at the golden light in the stone cocoon. He didn't know if it was a blessing or a curse. As Truth Listener twitched its nose, it sucked in the golden light that seeped out into its nose. It used its claws to attack the stone cocoon crazily, widening the cracks and emitting more and more golden light. Zhouwen stared at the crack, hoping to see what was inside. However, apart from the pure golden light, he couldn't see anything. It was clearly a small space, but it was shockingly deep. Crack! Truth Listener tore open a huge hole in the cocoon as its strong body burrowed into the broken stone cocoon. Chapter 1307. The light inside was too deep, but after Truth Listener entered, the light inside rapidly weakened. Not long after, the golden light inside the cocoon dimmed. Instead, the golden light on Truth Listener's body intensified. With great Brahma's strengthening, Zhouwen's vision could penetrate the golden light and see the situation inside. Inside the golden light, Zhouwen did see something, but there was no guardian as he had imagined. Zhouwen only saw an eyeball, a golden crystal-like eyeball. The golden light in the stone cocoon originated from the golden eyeball. The eyeball itself was so pure that it chilled one's heart. It was as though it was the purest holy object in the world. When Zhouwen stared at the eyeball, it moved as though it had sensed Zhouwen's gaze. The golden eye inside turned and looked at Zhouwen. Just a glance made Zhouwen feel like all his clothes had been stripped off. He was like a naked model standing there for others to observe and paint. He subconsciously raised his hand to protect his vital parts. Roar! Truth Listener roared like thunder as golden light bloomed from its body. It extended its claws and grabbed at the golden eye. However, the light outside the golden eye was almost corporeal. The closer Truth Listener's claws were to the eye, the slower they moved forward. When it was about a foot away from the golden eye, its claws could no longer move forward. Crack! The fifth earring on Truth Listener's ear shattered. Its claws continued moving forward, but it only moved forward about 10 centimeters before it slowed down again. Finally, it couldn't move at all. Finally, Truth Listener's last earring shattered and fell, turning into golden light that scattered. Zhouwen saw Truth Listener's body not continue enlarging after its 6 rings shattered. Instead, it shrank significantly. The golden fur on its body emitted a resplendent and pure golden light that was almost corporeal. It was like a super scion transformation. The present Truth Listener was only about half a head taller than Zhouwen. Its fingernails were like golden crystal daggers that tore through the golden light outside the eye and pierced through it. As the golden eye was pierced, the golden light in the stone cocoon seemed to lose its support. Truth Listener gently inhaled, and like a surging river, it surged towards its nose. However, this time, Truth Listener didn't deliberately absorb the golden light. It was only sniffing the scent of the eye. Truth Listener's middle fingernail pierced through an eyeball. It placed it in front of its nose and inhaled. It looked very much like Zhouwen when he was eating skewers. Then, Zhouwen saw Truth Listener open its mouth and pull the eyeball into its mouth. After chewing a few times, it swallowed it. Following that, it opened its mouth and crazily devoured the golden light in the stone cocoon. In a blink of an eye, it devoured all the golden light inside. The golden light on its body had already reached a peak. The intense golden light prevented Zhouwen from seeing its appearance. However, he could still vaguely sense his connection with Truth Listener. This time, Truth Listener didn't completely lose control. It still maintained a faint connection. Crack! Crack! As the eyeball and golden light were devoured by Truth Listener, cracks appeared on the stone artifact that contained the stone cocoon. Not only the stoneware, but also the chains connected to the stoneware, the collars on the 4 apes, and the giant turtle shells under their feet began to crack. Roar. The 4 apes roared in excitement as they exerted strength with their 8 claws. The stone artifact, which was already cracked to begin with, instantly shattered. The chains on their bodies also snapped. The sea and the entire underground space were affected by their strength. The seawater surged and the stone dome shattered. Rays of sunlight shot in from the sky as though they had broken the barrier between hell and the human world, causing the sunlight to fall into hell. The terrifying aura that erupted from the 4 apes was unimaginable. Zhou had never felt such a terrifying aura before. This power. It can't be at the calamity grade, right? Amidst the terrifying aura, Zhou body involuntarily trembled. It wasn't because Zhou was afraid. At the end of the day, Zhou wasn't afraid because it was useless to be afraid. His mind raced as he thought about how to survive. That trembling was an instinct of life. It was an instinctive reaction of the body when facing an irresistible disaster. It was a convulsion caused by helplessness and despair. Without any hesitation, Zhou used interstellar teleportation and teleported to Venus. As he had lost the suppression of the turtle shell and the stone artifact, there was no spatial lock. Zhou's Singularity Universe's powers came into play, allowing him to arrive on Venus. However, before Zhou could find his footing, he felt the world spin around him. He cried out inwardly and hurriedly circulated his various powers, hoping to escape his present predicament. In the next instant, Zhou's figure appeared in the black-gray ape's claws again. At that moment, the black-gray ape's aura was as terrifying as that of a demon king. Due to the power it used, its ape arms became as huge as 2 metal towers. It was as though it could crush the planet with a single claw if it wanted to. Grabbing the sun and moon, shrinking 1,000 mountains, and moving stars. This fellow is a long-armed ape monkey. Could these 4 apes really be the 4 chaos monkeys? Zhou was alarmed. To be able to directly capture him from Venus and have an ape body, Zhou could only think of a long-armed ape monkey. The black-gray ape that was suspected to be a long-armed ape monkey pinched Zhou's body with its claws. The dragon-imprisoned armor that Zhou wore with absolute defense cracked from its strength and was severely deformed. Even Zhou's body was nearly flattened. His chest caved in as blood spewed out of his mouth. However, from the looks of it, the long-armed ape monkey didn't seem to be using much strength. It was only casually pinching Zhou. F***ku. Zhou cursed as he suddenly released his strength. He pulled out the immortal culling sword and slashed at the black-gray ape's face. Clang! The immortal culling sword slashed down midway, but it froze in midair. The long-armed ape monkey's other claw had pinched the blade of the immortal culling sword, preventing it from moving any further. With a flash, demonic neonate and Banana Fairy automatically rushed out of Zhou's body. Banana Fairy held the banana fan and fanned it at the long-armed ape monkey. The demonic sword in demonic neonate's hand vanished as it strangely appeared beside the long-armed ape monkey's ear and stabbed at its ear hole. However, the chaos wind that was augmented by the 3 realms' best wind could only cause the long-armed ape monkey's fur to stand up. It failed to injure it at all, nor did it make it move a single step. Just as the demonic sword was about to stab into the ear hole, it suddenly lost control and deviated from its trajectory. In an instant it vanished. When it appeared again, it was already in the long-armed ape monkey's claw. The long-armed ape monkey didn't seem to think anything of it. It lifted Zhou's body in the wind and was about to throw him into its mouth. It's still very slow. There's no way to make up for it today. Sorry, good night. End of this chapter. Chapter 1308. Zhou felt that he had no choice but to believe it. Every time he entered a dimensional zone in real life, there was a high chance that something would happen. This time it was even worse. He had only tested a skill and caused such a huge problem. Now, he was probably going to lose his life. Zhou no longer had the time to think about anything else. Seeing that he was about to be thrown into the long-armed ape monkey's mouth, Zhou's final thought was to remove his contract with his companion beasts and allow them to regain their freedom so that they wouldn't be buried with him. For demonic neonate and banana fairy, it was better to escape than to die with him. However, the long-armed ape monkey's actions were too fast. Zhou only had this thought in mind, but before he could carry it out, he had already been thrown into the mouth that was filled with fangs. The jagged teeth were about to bite down. Boom! A golden beam flashed like a phantom as the long-armed ape monkey's teeth bit down but missed. A golden figure appeared in front of the long-armed ape monkey. The golden figure wore a suit of armor that resembled a golden crystal. He was tall and slender, but he gave off a majestic feeling that his entire body was filled with explosive power. His long golden curly hair reached his ankles. His pair of golden eyes were as pure as flawless crystals. His face was like a spotless piece of peerless jade. It was as though the most beautiful thing in the world had landed on this man. Nothing could compare to the beauty of the world. The perfect combination of strength and beauty made him look like a perfect god that only existed in fantasy. However, such a pure and perfect man gave off an extremely evil feeling. It was as though one would fall into the realm of demons if they took another look at him. At that moment, the man was carrying a person with his arms like a princess. It was none other than Zhou, who had nearly been devoured by the long-armed ape monkey. Zhou looked at the man's face in a daze. He had already known who the man was from his aura and the connection between them, but he still found it unbelievable. Di Ting has actually become like this. Zhou was alarmed. If not for the contractual connection between them, Zhou wouldn't have believed that the man in front of him was Truth Listener. Roar! The long-armed ape monkey roared angrily at Zhou and Truth Listener. The roar blasted the seawater apart, forming a tsunami-like wave that spewed out in all directions. It slowly raised its gigantic arms as though it was about to attack Zhou and Truth Listener. Truth Listener hugged Zhou as the golden light on its body flickered like flames. Its crystalline long hair danced with the flames as it stared firmly at the long-armed ape monkey. The long-armed ape monkey waved its huge arms and disappeared in an instant. Zhou knew that it wasn't a true disappearance, but that the long-armed ape monkey's strength and speed were just too powerful and fast. It had already broken through the limitations of space. Boom! As if it had suffered a heavy blow, Truth Listener's body flew out like a golden stream of light. It streaked across the sea and slammed into the swaying and shattering mountain wall, causing a large portion of the mountain wall to collapse. Golden blood seeped out of the corner of Truth Listener's mouth as it broke through the rubble and stood up. It carried Zhou out with both hands, but Zhou wasn't injured. Roar! The long-armed ape monkey roared at Diding again. However, Truth Listener didn't seem to hear anything. It just stood there with Zhou in its arms, staring coldly at the long-armed ape monkey. The long-armed ape monkey roared a few more times, as though it was telling Truth Listener not to be a busybody. However, Truth Listener ignored it and continued protecting Zhou. The long-armed ape monkey seemed to be infuriated by Truth Listener's stubbornness and rudeness. It raised its arm once again, wanting to attack again. However, it wasn't as decisive as before. It seemed to be hesitating. Boom! A loud sound shook the surroundings, and the sky seemed to split in half from the middle. Sunlight poured in, giving this doomsday-like world a bit more warmth. The long-armed ape monkey looked up. The sunlight scattered on its face, making its ferocious face appear much gentler. The other three apes roared into the sky. Their roars were filled with indescribable excitement and madness. After the golden-furred ape roared, it glanced at Truth Listener and Zhou. It actually spoke in human language and said, "Thank you." Then, its body tore through the sky as a cloud appeared beneath its feet. It shot into the horizon and vanished. The white-furred ape also looked at Truth Listener and Zhou, but it didn't say a word. All it did was shake its head before disappearing like a ghost. The long-armed ape monkey glared at Zhou fiercely and didn't attack again. It extended its arms and used its claws to pull at the two sides of the Rift Valley's stone dome. It forcefully pulled open the stone dome as though it was tearing the sky apart. Its feet exerted strength as it soared into the sky like a cannonball, instantly vanishing. Beneath its feet, the ground cracked and the seawater surged. It was a scene of the apocalypse. Zhou looked at the red-furred ape. The three monkeys had left, but it hadn't. It floated in midair and sized up Truth Listener and Zhou with its pair of yin-yang eyes. Its brows revealed an extremely human-like, vexed expression. After a long while, the red-furred ape suddenly sighed and looked at Truth Listener. If you were to exchange your life for his, would you regret it? Truth Listener didn't say a word, but its resolute gaze explained everything. Forget it. Life and death are fated. It's not up to anyone. Remember, you only have one life, and only one can live. With that said, the red-furred ape slowly walked towards the sky. Under its feet, there seemed to be an invisible staircase. The red-furred ape took 49 steps, and its figure became fainter, as though it had turned into nothingness. It vanished just like that. After the red-furred ape vanished, Truth Listener placed Zhou on the ground and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The golden light on its body rapidly converged as its body gradually transformed from a human into an ape. Earrings appeared out of thin air and returned to Truth Listener's ears one after another. When the sixth earring returned to his ear, he had already transformed back into the six-eared golden monkey. It was impossible to tell that he was the godlike man from before. Zhou took out the dragon tiger pill essence and wanted to feed it to Truth Listener, but Truth Listener shook its head and suddenly transformed into a stream of light that returned to Zhou's ear, returning to its earring state. When the earring returned, Zhou felt the world become extremely complicated. All sorts of sounds entered his ears, and it was so noisy that it felt like his head was about to explode. Countless sounds entered Zhou's ears. There were so many that he couldn't count them. They were far and near, as though they came from the ends of the sky. They were extremely close, as though countless people were muttering in his ears. There were so many sounds that it was unimaginable. If a drop of water represented a different sound, then in a second, Zhou would receive more sounds than the Pacific Ocean's water. With the sounds of the world in his ears, Zhou experienced the magical power, but at the same time, he realized that it might not be a good thing. There were too many useless sounds. Trying to find the sound he needed to hear in the sea of sounds was no different from finding a needle in a haystack. At the very least, Zhou wasn't used to such a state. Chapter 1309. Zhou had yet to adapt to the state of receiving the sounds of heaven and earth, but he wasn't in the mood to think about it. He planned on leaving first. After flying out of the torn stone sky, Zhou turned his head and couldn't help but gape. He thought that the place he had just flown out of was a huge underground space, but when he looked back, he realized that it was just a gourd-shaped stone. It was only a foot tall and looked very rough, as if it was naturally formed. It was full of edges and corners, and it was among the pebbles by a small stream. At that moment, the gourd-shaped stone had already broken into two. He could see water flowing out, but the amount that flowed out was very small. It was probably the amount of mineral water. I was in this thing just now? Zhou found it unbelievable as he walked to the two halves of the gourd-shaped stone and reached out to pick them up. However, no matter how Zhou looked at it, it seemed to be a very ordinary stone. Apart from its strange shape, there was nothing special about it. Zhou squeezed it hard and the stone shattered, falling to the ground. Was I dreaming just now? Zhou looked around and saw the gurgling stream. Green bamboos formed a shade, and the bright sunlight shone on him. It was warm, making him unable to tell if it was reality or a dream. Soon, Zhouwen knew that he wasn't dreaming. The sounds of heaven and earth that sounded in his ears made Zhouwen uncomfortable due to the huge amount of information. He couldn't even distinguish the sounds that were right in front of him. Zhouwen first attempted to locate himself, but he never expected that there was still a phone signal in this place. He used his phone's positioning function and realized that he was still in the East District. However, he was about 50 kilometers south of the East District. There was a human city. Zhouwen followed the map on his phone and quickly arrived at the human city. He confirmed that his phone's location wasn't wrong. On the way, Zhouwen kept trying to deactivate Truth Listener's power, but he couldn't. The sounds kept surging into his ears. Ordinary people could tell what the sound came from based on the volume and location of the sound, but Truth Listener's listening mode was somewhat different from the average person's. Regardless of the distance, regardless of how loud or soft the sound was, Zhouwen could hear it clearly. Furthermore, the number of sounds coming from the same spot was unimaginable. There was clearly nothing in front of him, but Zhouwen could hear countless sounds coming from there. Now, if Zhouwen wanted to hear a particular sound clearly, he had to switch to a fixed channel like a television channel to be able to accurately hear the sound. Otherwise, his brain wouldn't be able to process all the sounds mixed together. The outcome would be the same as not hearing anything. However, there were only a few hundred television channels at most. The choices Zhouwen had to face were as numerous as the eternal sands. It wasn't easy to make the right choice. He needed to slowly get used to it. Zhouwen knew that this was because his ability was too weak and Truth Listener's ability was too strong, resulting in such hearing difficulties. When he could reach the level of Truth Listener's ability, he probably wouldn't have such problems again. He took out his phone again and took a look at Diding's information. Truth Listener, Terror Grade, Evolvable, Life Providence, Omniscient Senses Life Soul, Evil Nullification Wheel of Fate, Nirvana of Ultimate Hell, Terror Transformation, Holy Evil Strength, 99 Speed, 99 Constitution, 99 Essence Energy, 99 Talent Skill, Truth Listener, Indestructible Golden Body, Evil Warding, 9 Extremes Companion Form, Earrings. Truth Listener's evolution was far lower than Zhouwen had imagined. An existence like the long-armed ape monkey was most likely at the apocalypse stage. It was truly unexpected that Truth Listener could withstand its strike head-on, but it was only at the Terror grade. Zhouwen imagined that it would be able to jump to the Calamity grade this time. However, thinking of Truth Listener's 6 earrings, he knew that this fellow's Terror grade was likely the level after being sealed by the earrings. After unsealing the earrings, it definitely wouldn't be at this level. What's the background of Truth Listener? Zhouwen was alarmed and puzzled. He planned on returning to Small Buddha Temple to take a look. Perhaps he could find some clues. Zhouwen originally wanted to return as soon as possible, but he realized that the situation nearby was somewhat amiss. Although the weather in the south was warmer, it was impossible for it to be this hot, right? On the streets, people were wearing shorts and singlets, but they were still sweating profusely. Looking up at the sun in the sky, it didn't seem that hot. Zhouwen did a count of the days. It wasn't summer yet, so it shouldn't be that hot. The situation outside was even worse. The paddy fields had been dried up and the soil had cracked. It wasn't easy for the paddy to be planted, but it had already dried up in the ground before it had even matured. Is the weather here always this hot? Zhouwen found a small shop and bought some things. When he paid, he inquired about the weather. However, Zhouwen couldn't hear what the shop owner was saying at such a close distance. This was because there were too many sounds coming from his position. The sound of bacteria squirming in the air, the sound of dust colliding, and all kinds of sounds were unimaginable. Zhouwen only saw the shop owner open his mouth, but he didn't know what he was saying. He was somewhat anxious. Momentarily unable to find the correct channel, he tried to see if he could tell what he was saying from the shape of his mouth. However, Zhouwen was very disappointed. He didn't know if it was because the other party was speaking in a dialect or because lip-reading didn't work at all. In any case, Zhouwen couldn't read it. Zhouwen looked around and saw a pen and paper on the counter. He took it and wrote, "I'm deaf. Can you tell me by writing?" Deaf? That's really rare. Typically, deaf people should be mute, right? The shop owner wrote on the notebook. "I was born deaf," Zhouwen explained directly. No wonder. As there wasn't much business, the shop owner was very free, so he chatted with Zhouwen. Only then did Zhouwen know that the weather had suddenly turned hot in the past half a month. In the past few months, although there had been a few extremely hot abnormal weather, it didn't last long. Typically, it would return to normal in a few hours. However, this time, the hot weather had lasted for half a month. It was so hot that people couldn't take it. Ordinary people would probably die from the heat in such weather. Many people had already begun migrating to other areas. Strangely enough, this dry and hot weather only affected the surrounding few hundred kilometers. It wasn't that the entire south was hot. As long as they left this area, they would be fine. Many people guessed that a large dimensional zone had broken out nearby, so they fled. For example, there weren't many people in this city, so the shop owner was so free. A few hundred kilometers nearby? Zhouwen's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Chapter 13:10. Zhouwen quickly took out his phone and checked the map to confirm that he hadn't remembered wrongly. The Zhang family is in this area. Zhouwen opened his address book and sent a message to Zhang Yuji. "I happen to have something to do near your house. Do you have time to meet?" "What's the matter?" Zhouwen was somewhat surprised that Zhang Yuji replied so quickly. The Zhang family's protection of Zhang Yuji was too good. Typically, it was rare for Zhang Yuji to communicate with others. "Did something happen to the fiend tomb?" Zhouwen asked directly. "There's a problem," Zhang Yuji replied. "Do you need help?" Zhouwen didn't feel too good. Although Zhang Yuji made it sound easy, Zhouwen knew that once something happened to the fiend tomb, it definitely wouldn't be a small problem. The one inside was very likely the legendary drought demon. If she were to appear, there was a high chance that she would be accompanied by a natural disaster. Unlike ordinary guardians, she was a guardian that had survived the mythical era. Her level was very high. Although Zhouwen wasn't sure if a calamity-grade guardian would trigger a natural disaster phenomenon, legend had it that when the drought demon appeared, it was indeed a barren land for thousands of kilometers. Furthermore, the weather in the nearby area seemed to have been affected. This was very terrifying. Tsukuyomi's ghost parade was already very terrifying, but compared to the drought demon, it was nothing. For thousands of kilometers, everything would be scorched wherever it passed. It was a barren land. As long as the drought demon passed through the area, humans would probably die. However, from the current situation, the drought demon likely hadn't appeared yet. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as the weather turning hot. It's just a small problem. The family is trying to resolve it. However, it's rare for you to take the initiative to help, so I won't stand on ceremony. Coincidentally, I have something I need help with. Come to my house first. Zhang Yuji finally sent a playful winking emoji. Alright, I'll be right there. Seeing that Zhang Yuji seemed to be in a good mood, Zhouwen couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, the problem wasn't serious. When Zhouwen arrived at the Zhang family, Zhang Yuji was already waiting for him at the door. Zhang Chuanxiu was with her. "Zhouwen, it's really difficult to meet you now," Zhang Yuji said with a smile. "Didn't I come by myself?" It wasn't easy for Zhouwen to explain. In the past few years, Zhang Yuji had sent him quite a number of messages, but he had been trapped for 5 years, so he hadn't had the chance to read them. However, as Jing had replaced him for 5 years, he couldn't reveal the matter. "Brother Zhang, how's the situation with the fiend tomb?" Zhouwen was very concerned about the fiend tomb. This was because once the drought demon was born, it would not only affect the Zhang family, but also the entire city and land. When the time came, the entire East District might suffer from a terrifying natural disaster. Zhou and his family would not be able to completely stay out of it. I'm thinking of a way to resolve it. The area affected shouldn't be too large, Zhang Chuanxiu said. Seeing Zhang Chuanxiu say so, Zhou felt a lot more at ease. After some thought, he asked, Brother Zhang, I've only heard that the birth of calamity-grade dimensional creatures will be accompanied by a calamity phenomenon. I wonder if the birth of a calamity-grade guardian will also trigger a calamity phenomenon? Zhang Chuanxiu pondered for a moment and said, Generally speaking, the appearance of all calamity-grade creatures won't trigger a calamity phenomenon. Only when a creature advances to the calamity realm will it trigger a calamity phenomenon. No matter what creature it is, it's the same. Guardians are naturally no exception. Upon hearing Zhang Chuanxiu's words, Zhou felt that this matter wasn't serious. The drought demon was already at the calamity grade in the mythical era. It was impossible for her to trigger another calamity phenomenon unless she used the calamity domain herself. However, judging from the Zhang family's attitude, the drought demon wouldn't appear so easily. Otherwise, they would have long evacuated. It was impossible for them to stay here and wait for death. Are you here to help or to chat? Zhang Yuji said with a smile. If there's anything you need my help with, I'll definitely do my best as long as it's within my capabilities, Zhou said. Then follow me, Zhang Yuji said as she turned around and entered Zhang Manor. Go ahead. I still have something to do, so I won't be accompanying you. Zhou looked at Zhang Chuanxiu, who said with a smile. Only then did Zhou follow Zhang Yuji into Zhang Manor. As the Zhang family doted on Zhang Yuji to the extreme, and due to Zhang Yuji herself, the Zhang family typically didn't allow outsiders to come into contact with her. Zhou followed Zhang Yuji through corridors and courtyards before arriving at a small yard. This yard wasn't very big, but it was decorated very elegantly. There were many flowers and plants planted inside, but they didn't make one feel that they were unnecessary. It was as though every blade of grass and flower was meant to be there. Zhou didn't know much about flowers and plants, but he could tell that the person who had decorated this yard was very powerful. He was a transcendent figure who had a profound understanding of mountains and rivers. My garden isn't bad, right? Zhang Yuji asked Zhou smugly. Did you set this up? Zhou asked in surprise. Why? Can't I? Zhang Yuji curled her lips. No, it's great. I never expected you to be so accomplished in this aspect, Zhou said sincerely. He had always wanted to learn the Tao of nature and use it to comprehend the true meaning of slaughterer. This was because Zhou had a nagging feeling that slaughterer's foundation wasn't as simple as slaughtering. Perhaps slaughterer's foundation was related to the Tao of life. Slaughterer was unable to transform into his terror form, so Zhou had the idea of learning the Tao of nature. However, he really wasn't made for this, so he didn't have any achievements. It's really rare to receive your praise. However, your level of praise isn't very good, Zhang Yuji said happily. I'm really not good at that. Let's talk about what I can help with, Zhou said. You are really boring. I don't think you have any friends, right? Zhang Yuji said with a twitch of her lips. Indeed. I don't have any friends. Zhou thought about it carefully and realized that it was true. He really couldn't think of many who could be considered friends. What does this have to do with what you want me to help you with? Zhou asked again. You are really hopeless. Wait for me here. Zhang Yuji rolled her eyes at him before turning around and walking into the house. Soon, she came out with a bucket. Come on, help me plant flowers today. Zhang Yuji took out a shovel from the bucket and handed it to Zhou. You wanted my help to plant flowers? Zhou was slightly taken aback. Why? Do you want to go back on your word? Zhang Yuji said to Zhou with a smile. All right, I'll do whatever you say. Zhou felt that this was a good thing. For Zhang Yuji to be so relaxed meant that the matter with the fiend tomb wasn't too serious. Therefore, under Zhang Yuji's instructions, Zhou began his career as a gardener. Loosen the soil. Sigh. Why are you so stupid? It's loosening the soil, not digging a hole. Pour some water over there. I asked you to water it, not drip by drops. If you pour it out drop by drop, how long will it take? Why did you pour it all in? Do you want to drown my poor flower? Chapter 13:11. Zhou maintained a smile as though he didn't care what Zhang Yuji said. In fact, Zhou basically didn't hear what Zhang Yuji said. Along the way, he had been trying to get used to the heaven and earth sounds that Truth Listener gave him. However, it was just too difficult. Ignoring the fact that he could receive all the sounds, Zhou could only occasionally hear the correct channel for the voice in front of him. When he listened to Zhang Yuji's words, he basically listened and guessed. The remaining 10% relied on blind guesses. That was why he kept doing the wrong things Zhang Yuji asked him to do. Otherwise, with his control over his strength, he wouldn't have made so many mistakes even if he didn't know how to plant flowers. Zhou originally imagined that Zhang Yuji would be angry at his actions. After all, it was obvious that a lot of effort had been put into this garden. Every blade of grass and tree looked ordinary, but they were actually carefully selected. However, although Zhang Yuji kept nagging at Zhou, she wasn't really angry. Instead, she patiently told Zhou what to do. However, as Zhou was basically listening and guessing, he couldn't understand half of it. Therefore, he appeared very clumsy. Often, Zhang Yuji repeated it several times, but Zhou still couldn't figure out the situation. Zhang Yuji wasn't in a hurry either. She seemed to treat teaching the stupid Zhou how to plant flowers and nagging as a form of pleasure. Zhou wasn't in a hurry. After all, he had to practice adapting to the powers that Truth Listener gave him. However, it made him feel a little embarrassed that he kept doing things that didn't match up. That day, Zhou didn't do anything other than helping Zhang Yuji destroy the garden. No, it should be said that he destroyed the garden. Zhou didn't quite understand. He had made many mistakes, such as watering the roots with water that was supposed to be watered on the leaf. Although it wasn't a big deal, the many mistakes made the originally perfect and exquisite garden lose its flavor. Zhang Yuji knew this, but she refused to do it herself. She continued instructing Zhou. Only when the sun set did Zhang Chuanxiu call them for dinner. Only then did Zhang Yuji let Zhou off. Although Zhou had been listening more than speaking, Zhang Chuanxiu and Zhang Yuji were extremely smart people. They could naturally tell that there was something wrong with Zhou's hearing. However, since Zhou didn't say anything, they didn't ask. They continued chatting with him with a smile. Even if Zhou's answers didn't match up, they could still continue chatting as though they hadn't discovered his abnormality. It's getting late. It's time I bid you farewell. After the meal, Zhou planned on returning to Luoyang. No way, I haven't even finished the work in the garden, and you're leaving just like that? Isn't that giving up halfway? Zhang Yuji glared at him. Even though Zhou didn't hear what Zhang Yuji said, he could tell what she had said from her expression. Zhou realized that not being able to hear what the other party was saying wasn't necessarily a bad thing at times. Someone said that closing one's eyes and listening to the world would allow one to discover many beautiful things that had been neglected in the past. In fact, it was the same the other way around. Without sound, one would not be able to hear the other party's language. Without the modifiers of words, one would be able to discover many things that would have been difficult to discover in the past. I didn't know human expressions and body language were so interesting. Zhou realized that it was very easy for him to ignore the other party's emotions in the past. He would only judge the other party's thoughts from their words. But now, he realized that most of the time, words could lie, but the emotions reflected by body language could not. During the period when he couldn't hear what the other party was saying, his ability to read body language rapidly improved. I can't stay here forever to help you take care of the garden, right? Zhou said. Being able to read a person's emotions didn't mean that Zhou Wen had a high EQ. In fact, reading comprehension and instinctive reaction were two different things. At the very least, you have to fix the parts you destroyed, right? Zhang Yuji said. When Zhou Wen heard this, he thought about it carefully and felt that it made sense. He was clearly here to help, but he had left the garden in such a state. It wasn't good. All right, let's continue tomorrow. Zhou Wen thought to himself that he had roughly learned the habits of the flowers and plants today. It wouldn't take long for him to finish the task tomorrow. Zhang Yuji's health didn't seem to be very good. After the meal, Zhang Chuanqiu got someone to send her back to rest. Don't think of running away shamelessly. Before leaving, Zhang Yuji turned her head and teased Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen didn't hear what she was saying, nor could he guess what she meant from her expression. All he could do was respond with a smile. Zhang Yuji giggled, then turned around and left. Zhou Wen was helpless. He didn't know what Zhang Yuji was saying, much less why she was laughing. He felt like a fool. I'll take you to your guest room. After Zhang Chuanqiu brought Zhou Wen to the guest room, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he sat down at the table. Zhang Chuanqiu reached out his index finger and dipped it in the teacup. He wrote, Zhou Wen, do you need help? Thank you. I'm fine. I'll recover in a while. Zhou Wen wasn't surprised. It would be strange if Zhang Chuanqiu couldn't tell. I do have something that I need your help with, Zhang Chuanqiu wrote seriously. Is the situation in the Fiend Tomb very bad? Zhou Wen was alarmed as he hurriedly asked. Zhang Chuanqiu shook his head and wrote, I hope you can stay in the Zhang family for 4 more days. Why? Zhou Wen looked at Zhang Chuanqiu in puzzlement. He wanted him to stay, but he didn't say what he wanted him to do. This puzzled Zhou Wen. Help me protect my little sister for the next 4 days. The little sister Zhang Chuanqiu mentioned was Zhang Yuji. As Zhang Yuji was the only female in the Zhang family's generation, Zhang Chuanqiu and company were used to calling her little sister. Yuji is in danger? Zhou Wen's expression turned solemn. Zhang Chuanqiu nodded. There's something wrong with the Zhang family. I'm afraid that someone will harm my sister. You should understand that it's not convenient for me to use my own family at such a time. 4 days. No problem. Zhou Wen thought for a moment. If that was the case, it shouldn't be difficult. Although the Zhang family was powerful, they didn't have a calamity-grade expert. It shouldn't be too difficult to protect Zhang Yuji. Thank you. Zhang Chuanqiu said the word with his mouth. Zhou Wen happened to hear this and shook his head. Yuji is my friend. She once saved me. This is what I should do. Zhang Chuanqiu didn't say anything else. He smiled at Zhou Wen and got up to leave his room. After Zhang Chuanqiu left the courtyard, Zhang Xiao walked over and asked in puzzlement, Why did you make Zhou Wen stay at such a time? My sister has sacrificed too much for the Zhang family in her life. She doesn't even have a normal friend. Since she's happy, let Zhou Wen stay with her for a few days, Zhang Chuanqiu said with a sigh. That punk, Zhou Wen, is a fool. Since you want to make my sister happy, you should tell him about it and get him to do his best to please her. Otherwise, with Zhou Wen's personality, he will only make her unhappy, Zhang Xiao said. Are you questioning my sister's intelligence, or do you think she's the kind of person who will happily accept pity? Zhang Chuanqiu glanced coldly at Zhang Xiao. Chapter 13:12. Zhang Xiao was alarmed as he hurriedly lowered his head and said, I was too impatient. I also hope that my sister can be happy. Happy? I hope she can be sad. Zhang Chuanqiu looked up in a certain direction and said with a complicated expression, Born in the Zhang family, she doesn't even have the right to be sad. If possible, I hope she can understand what it means to be sad. That way, at least she will still be my sister. Zhang Xiao said dejectedly, If I can choose, I'd rather bear this in my sister's place, but the one in the Fiend Tomb, shut up. Zhang Chuanqiu, who had always been as gentle as jade and didn't seem to be angry, suddenly flew into a rage. He stared at Zhang Xiao like a knife. Zhang Xiao was alarmed as his body trembled, and he couldn't help but take 2 steps back. Although they were brothers of about the same age, Zhang Xiao had a deep reverence for Zhang Chuanqiu. Usually, he might have dared to rebut Zhang Chuanqiu or even deliberately argue with him. However, once Zhang Chuanqiu became serious, Zhang Xiao didn't dare say anything else. Zhang Xiao had never seen Zhang Chuanqiu so angry before. He was horrified and almost didn't dare look up at Zhang Chuanqiu. Zhang Chuanqiu stared coldly at Zhang Xiao and said, "You have to remember that your life was exchanged for by my sister. You have no right to say that you can replace her. Everyone in the Zhang family is the same. My sister doesn't owe anyone in the Zhang family. Only the Zhang family owes her. If you really want to save her, leave your life behind. Without the Zhang family and us, my sister doesn't have to bear everything." "Brother, I know. I didn't mean that." Zhang Zhao's face turned livid and pale from Zhang Chuanqiu's words, but he didn't dare retort. Even his words were somewhat incoherent. Zhang Chuanqiu didn't say anything else, nor did he listen to Zhang Xiao. He turned around and left. After Zhang Chuanqiu disappeared from Zhang Zhao's sight, Zhang Zhao's expression gradually returned to normal. He gritted his teeth and muttered softly, "Aren't you the same? What right do you have to be angry at me?" The next day, Zhou came to Zhang Yuji's garden again. Today's Zhang Yuji was like a completely different person compared to yesterday. Yesterday, she was dressed very formally, like a young lady from a wealthy family. When she was in front of outsiders, she treated people very well. With one look, one could tell that she was from a prestigious family, like a high and mighty princess. In fact, it was not an exaggeration to say that Zhang Yuji was a princess. The Zhang family's sphere of influence was much larger than a country in ancient times. But today, Zhang Yuji had a ponytail. She wore jeans, a short-sleeved black t-shirt, and a hat with a long brim on her head. Although her figure was still very good and her slender legs were very attractive, she looked like a completely different person from yesterday. "What's that?" Zhou noticed that there was a pile of items in the middle of the garden. They were covered by a huge piece of black silk, but he had no idea what they were. Zhou still remembered that the garden didn't have these things yesterday. "This is good stuff. Have you ever heard of the saying that music makes plants happy?" Zhang Yuji blinked her eyes and said. Zhou didn't hear what Zhang Yuji was saying, nor could he tell what she was saying. All he could do was remain silent. Zhang Yuji seemed to know that Zhou would have such a reaction, so she continued mysteriously. "In ancient times, through the research of certain people, plants can grow better after listening to beautiful music. According to their research, if ordinary vegetables listen to the beautiful tunes played by musicians, they will grow more vibrant and have stronger vitality than similar vegetables that don't listen to music." Zhou occasionally happened to hear a few words. He only knew that Zhang Yuji seemed to be saying things like vegetables, music, and happiness. He had no idea what she meant. "Let's get to work," Zhou said helplessly. Zhang Yuji curled her lips as though she was very dissatisfied with Zhou's reaction. However, she still pulled Zhou to the pile of items and lifted the black silk cloth. Only then did Zhou see that there was a set of drums beneath it. "Didn't you say that you wanted to clean up the garden? Why did you bring these things here?" Zhou asked as he looked at the drums. "Music makes plants happy," Zhang Yuji said to Zhou as she sat down in front of the drums with a crafty look in her eyes. Zhou finally heard that. He immediately guessed what Zhang Yuji had said previously. "Now, let me perform for you the musical skills I've meticulously practiced. I have a nickname in the Zhang family, the little Mozart of the Zhang family," Zhang Yuji said as she picked up the drumstick and began beating it. Zhou didn't hear what Zhang Yuji was saying, nor did he know who Mozart was. All he could do was listen to the drumming she produced seriously. Zhou looked at Zhang Yuji as his expression turned odder. Zhang Yuji was engrossed in her drumming, but even if Zhou didn't know music, Even if he had never heard a drum set before, even if he could only occasionally hear a small portion, however, this didn't stop him from believing that the plants wouldn't be happy after hearing such music. No, it shouldn't be considered music. It was more appropriate to describe it as a voice. However, Zhang Yuji seemed to be intoxicated. As she hammered hard, she seemed to shout at Zhou. However, Zhou didn't hear a single word this time. The sound of the drum set was a huge obstacle to his hearing. It wasn't just the sound of the drum set itself. The sound of the drum set affected the various plants in the garden. Petals, leaves, grass, bugs, and even dust and bacteria produced more sounds due to the vibrations. The amount of sound information in the garden increased exponentially, making it impossible for Zhou to hear what Zhang Yuji was saying. It was difficult for him to capture her voice information amidst the chaotic sea of sound information. Zhang Yuji said a lot, but when she saw that Zhou didn't react at all, not only was she not angry, but she also revealed a meaningful smile. Zhang Yuji stopped drumming and said to Zhou, "Zhou, you're really smart. So smart that you're like..." Dang, Zhou focused on listening to Zhang Yuji's voice. As the drumming stopped, the amount of sound information was greatly reduced. He was lucky enough to capture Zhang Yuji's voice and hear her words. However, when Zhang Yuji spoke, she casually knocked again. The sound immediately disrupted Zhou's hearing, preventing him from hearing what she said next. However, from what she said, she was likely praising him for being smart. "Thank you. You flatter me," Zhou said. When Zhang Yuji heard Zhou's words, her expression was very serious, but her eyes turned into crescents. This was because the last thing she said was, "as smart as a pig." Chapter 13:13. Zhou, you're a big idiot. You're simple-minded, well-developed, and as stupid as a pig. When Zhang Yuji cursed, her face was filled with admiration. However, as she spoke, she struck the drum. Zhou really didn't hear what she was saying, so he felt somewhat depressed. Only when Zhang Yuji stopped striking the drum did Zhou finally hear half a sentence. "I really admire you." Zhang Yuji's voice finally entered Zhou's ears. "I'm not that good either." Zhou scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. He never expected that Zhang Yuji had been praising him for so long. Zhou felt that perhaps Zhang Yuji was too embarrassed to praise him directly, so she used such a tactful method. "I really admire you. To be so completely stupid." Zhang Yuji continued striking the drum. Zhou saw Zhang Yuji speaking as she struck the drum. Her expression seemed innocent and kind, but Zhou had a nagging feeling that something was amiss. "No, I have to think of a way to hear what she's saying." Zhang Yuji kept talking to Zhou, but he couldn't hear anything. This left him depressed. It wasn't that he wanted to talk to Zhang Yuji, but he felt that something was amiss. Zhang Yuji's drumming was clearly interfering with his hearing. However, it was already difficult to capture Zhang Yuji's voice. With the drumming, it was even more difficult. Zhou tried again and again, but the outcome wasn't ideal. As the interference was too severe, it was almost impossible to capture Zhang Yuji's voice. It's impossible to rely on luck to capture the sound. However, the location and the intensity of the sound can't determine the source of the sound. Is there any other way to lock onto a particular sound? The first thing Zhou thought of was naturally the frequency of the sound. Using the frequency method could indeed determine some special frequencies of sound, but the frequency of a human's voice was just too ordinary. It would be drowned out by many other sounds. Even if Zhou locked onto Zhang Yuji's voice frequency, he would still receive a massive amount of sound information. Finding Zhang Yuji's voice was no different from finding a needle in a haystack. If the frequency doesn't work, are there any other characteristics to the sound? Frequency, pitch, and timbre. Within a certain range, the recognition of human voices is indeed very high, but this information is hidden in the vast amount of sound information. There are too many similar sounds. There are billions of humans alone. The interference is just too severe. Zhou could only listen to Zhang Yuji's voice again and again. He hoped to discover something different about other voices, but it didn't go so smoothly. The human voice didn't have a high degree of recognition among the sea of sound information. Zhang Yuji wasn't always playing the drums. When she wasn't, she would instruct Zhou to take care of the plants. At this moment, Zhou could easily capture Zhang Yuji's voice information and use it to constantly compare and judge. Although Zhou couldn't hear Zhang Yuji's voice when she was playing the drums, his ability to capture her voice was getting better. Zhou spent the next few days in the Zhang family. Zhang Yuji played with Zhou in different ways. In the morning, she played the drums, in the afternoon and in the evening, she played the violin. No matter how slow Zhou was, he knew that Zhang Yuji must have said something he didn't expect, but he didn't know what it was. In the past few days, the progress wasn't smooth. Be it the frequency, pitch, or timbre, there was no way to lock onto a voice. Although with his proficiency, Zhou could occasionally hear a voice he wanted to hear, it required a certain amount of luck and a relatively quiet environment. If Zhang Yuji made some complicated sounds, Zhou basically couldn't hear anything. The overlapping sounds and information was just too chaotic. In 4 days, the situation didn't improve. Zhou failed to hear what Zhang Yuji said when she made the sounds. However, Zhou knew one thing very well. Zhang Yuji didn't know those instruments at all. Time passed in the blink of an eye. Soon, it was time to meet Zhang Chuanqiu, but Zhou found it odd. Zhang Chuanqiu was afraid that someone would harm Zhang Yuji, but nothing happened in the past 4 days. Apart from Zhang Chuanqiu and a few others, no one approached the garden. Of course, Zhou didn't wish for anything to happen. Zhang Chuanqiu came to find Zhou and told him that the matter had been resolved. He could leave the Zhang family. When Zhou went to the garden to bid farewell to Zhang Yuji likely knew that Zhou was leaving today and was waiting for him in the garden. "I still have one last instrument that I'm good at. Listen to it before you leave," Zhang Yuji said to Zhou. Zhou felt somewhat helpless when he heard that. He was about to leave, but Zhang Yuji was still trying to tease him. Just as Zhou was thinking about how to reject Zhang Yuji, she had already sat down in front of a zither. Closing her eyes, Zhang Yuji's fingers hovered over the zither strings. After a while, she finally plucked the strings. She kept her eyes closed as her fingers danced on the zither strings. Even though he couldn't hear the zither music, Zhou knew that Zhang Yuji wasn't playing blindly just by looking at the rhythm of her fingers. She really knew how to play. After playing for a while, Zhang Yuji spoke again. However, this time, she wasn't speaking, but singing. Looking at Zhang Yuji, who was playing and singing with her eyes closed, Zhou suddenly wanted to know what she was playing and singing. For some reason, Zhou didn't feel anything when Zhang Yuji produced so many instruments and sounds in the past. However, this time, looking at the expressionless Zhang Yuji with her eyes closed, Zhou felt something stir in his heart. As he watched, Zhou suddenly heard a gentle voice. The voice sounded very soft and weak amid the chaotic sounds, but Zhou gradually felt that the surrounding sounds that were like a tidal wave were gradually weakening as the voice became clearer. "Dreamer. Familiar face. You are the gentleness I've been waiting for. Even if tears drown the world, I won't let go. Every moment. Waiting alone. Just because I once made a promise." Zhou finally heard what Zhang Yuji was singing and playing. The music and singing were very moving, but for some reason, Zhang Yuji gradually turned into a little girl in Zhou's eyes. She hugged her knees and curled her body, trembling in the endless darkness. There was no light in her world. Chapter 13-14. Zhou looked at Zhang Yuji in a daze. Zhang Yuji was still the same Zhang Yuji. In his eyes, Zhang Yuji was still playing the zither, her eyes closed as she immersed herself in her singing. However, for some reason, the image of a little girl curled up in the darkness surfaced in Zhou's mind. He could even hear the little girl's trembling and sorrowful voice. Since the heavens have destined me to walk into darkness, I'll use my darkness to exchange for everyone's light. This is what I deserve. All of them treated me as a friend. They would rather die than let me suffer any harm. But I caused their deaths. Such a dirty me doesn't deserve to embrace light. Zhang Yuji, you deserve to die. What's there to be afraid of? The little girl looked up as tears rolled down her cheeks. She looked up ahead, and in front of her, there was an additional ray of light in the darkness. Zhouwen was slightly taken aback. The light came from a figure that emitted light like an angel. However, it didn't have wings or an angel halo. It only looked like a human, and it looked identical to Zhouwen. The little girl looked at the figure as though she wanted to reach out and grab something, but she only extended her hand halfway before she timidly retracted it. A person like me will only bring misfortune to my friends. I will only harm them. I don't deserve to have friends. The little girl looked at the figure reluctantly as she slowly retracted her palm. Finally, she buried her head in her arms and curled up, sobbing softly. The only figure with a ray of light also shattered in the darkness. The world instantly returned to the darkness of despair. At that moment, Zhang Yuji had already finished singing. She opened her eyes, and the scene of the little girl in Zhou Wen's mind vanished as though everything that had just happened was a dream. The various sounds that had vanished returned to Zhou Wen's ears again, plunging him into a sea of noise. How was my singing? Zhang Yuji asked Zhou Wen. Perhaps it was because the sea of sound had just surged over and hadn't completely occupied Zhou Wen's hearing, but he heard this sentence clearly. I didn't hear it clearly. Zhou Wen shook his head. Strangely enough, he did hear Zhang Yuji's voice, and he could hear it very clearly, unaffected by the sea of sound. However, he could not remember what she was singing. All he could remember was the image and voice of the little girl. A big idiot who doesn't know how to appreciate art. Just looking at you makes me angry. Let's go. Don't let me see you again. Zhang Yuji looked very unhappy. After saying that, she got up and went back to her own building. Sorry, Yuji has been spoiled by us. She's a little willful, but she doesn't have any ill intentions. Don't blame her, Zhang Chuanxiu said to Zhou Wen. I know. Zhou Wen was surprised to discover that the chances of him accurately capturing sounds had increased. I'll send you off, Zhang Chuanxiu said. Zhou Wen hesitated for a moment before looking at Zhang Chuanxiu and asking, Is the fiend tomb really fine? Don't you think the weather has cooled down a lot these 2 days? Zhang Chuanxiu didn't answer directly. Zhou Wen understood what he meant. The scorching hot weather from before had gradually returned to normal in the past few days. It seemed to indicate that the fiend tomb was under control. If it were in the past, Zhou Wen wouldn't have had any bad thoughts. He would have felt that this matter was over. However, when he recalled the scene of the little girl, he felt that something was amiss. The scene I saw wasn't an illusion. If I'm not wrong, it should be the ability Truth Listener gave me. Legend has it that Truth Listener can listen to the sounds of the world and sense the good and evil of the human heart. It also has the ability to hear the thoughts of others. What I heard just now might be Zhang Yuji's inner voice. Zhou Wen guessed. However, for some reason, Zhou Wen could hear Zhang Yuji's thoughts just now, but now, he couldn't. He tried, but he couldn't hear Zhang Chuanxiu or the others' thoughts. This made Zhou Wen suspect if his judgment was correct. Perhaps it was really an illusion. My hearing hasn't fully recovered. Can you let me rest here for 2 more days? I'll leave after I recover? Zhou Wen asked Zhang Chuanxiu. I also want you to stay for a few more days, but Yuji said that she doesn't want to see you. If she sees you again, she will definitely throw a tantrum, Zhang Chuanxiu said. What did you say? Zhou Wen didn't hear Zhang Chuanxiu. I also want you to stay for a few more days. Zhang Chuanxiu had no choice but to repeat himself. However, just as he said that, Zhou Wen said, I can't stay for too long. I still have something to do when I get back. If a few days really won't do, I'll stay for another 2 days. No, I'm saying that Yuji doesn't want to see you. If she sees that you haven't left, she will throw a tantrum again. Zhang Chuanxiu said. What? You want to throw a tantrum? I really have something to do. I can't stay for too long. At most 3 days. No more. As Zhou spoke, he pulled Zhang Chuanxiu out. As he walked, he said, I never expected you to be so hospitable, brother Zhang. If I had known, I would have come to look for you often in the past. You're really nice. Zhang Chuanxiu looked at Zhou, unsure if he really couldn't hear him. What's going on? Why hasn't Zhou left yet? Zhang Xiao came over and asked after Zhang Chuanxiu and Zhou separated. His hearing hasn't recovered. He wants to stay for 2 or 3 more days, Zhang Chuanxiu answered. How can that be? The day after tomorrow. Zhang Xiao stopped talking. It's fine. Just ignore him, Zhang Chuanxiu said. What uncles mean is that they're afraid that Zhou will interfere with important matters. If anything happens, the Zhang family will never have a day of peace. It's best to let him leave early, Zhang Xiao said. I don't have the ability to chase him away, nor do I think he will interfere with any important matters. If you think there's a problem with him, chase him away yourself, Zhang Chuanxiu said as he turned around and left. Zhang Xiao looked at the yard where Zhou lived, but he didn't dare go over. All he could do was return and tell his elders what Zhang Chuanxiu had said. The Zhang family's elders were also vexed. If it was an ordinary person, the Zhang family could chase them away if they wanted to, but the person living in the Zhang family was Zhou. The Zhang family knew Zhou's strength. If Zhou didn't leave, they wouldn't dare use force to chase him out. Uncle, I think that Zhou might really just want to recover his hearing before leaving. It shouldn't have anything to do with our Zhang family, Zhang Xiao said after some hesitation when his uncle got Zhang Xiao to chase Zhou away. Even Zhang Chuanxiu couldn't chase Zhou away, so how could he chase him away? Forget it. It's not a problem. Let him stay there. In the end, it was Zhang Xiao who spoke up and the matter was left unsettled. Chapter 13-15. Inside the house, Zhou attempted to enter that state again. In that state, he could directly hear the voice in his heart and even turn it into an image. As long as he had such an ability, he might be able to figure out the truth from the Zhang family. However, it was unknown if Truth Listener's ability hadn't truly reached that stage or if Zhou's strength wasn't compatible with Truth Listener, but he failed to enter that state after many attempts. However, ever since he heard the voice in his heart, Zhou's ability to capture voices had become much stronger. The distance and strength weren't a problem for Zhou. As long as he found the right channel, no matter how far away they were, how soft the voice was, or even if someone whispered into his ear on Venus, Zhou could hear them clearly on Earth. Since using the voice didn't work, Zhou wanted to give it a try and see if he could find the Zhang family's voice channel and eavesdrop on them. This was clearly not an easy task. Zhou still couldn't accurately capture voices when they were face to face. Furthermore, there were so many people in the Zhang family. Zhou didn't know which person's words were useful, so it was easy to miss them. With no other choice, Zhou could only try slowly. After all, he had to practice controlling his hearing, so he treated it as practice. After listening for a long time, he could occasionally hear some of the Zhang family's words. However, they were all over the place, and some of them were just a few words. He didn't discover anything useful. All Zhou could do was continue practicing. He realized that ever since he heard Zhang Yuji's voice, his control over voice information became stronger and stronger. He improved very quickly. Outside the building, Uncle Zhang coughed lightly and said, "Yuji, are you resting?" "Eldest uncle, what's the matter?" Zhang Yuji opened the door and looked at eldest Uncle Zhang in confusion. "Nothing much. I just feel uncomfortable and want to chat with you," Uncle Zhang said. "Uncle, have a seat. I'll pour you a cup of tea," Zhang Yuji said as she prepared to get the teapot. "There's no need. I'll do it myself." Uncle Zhang rushed to pick up the teapot and poured himself a cup, but he didn't drink it. Putting down the teapot, Uncle Zhang sighed and said, Yuji, it's been hard on you. If there was any other way, we wouldn't have agreed to her conditions. If it's possible, I'd rather go to her place instead of you. Anyway, I'm already old and useless. You're still young and talented. The Zhang family is counting on you in the future. Uncle, you don't have to say anything. This is my fate. I accept it. She wants me. I won't drag the family down with me. Zhang Yuji said with her head lowered. What are you talking about? We're a family. The eldest uncle of the Zhang family said, I only hate myself for being useless. I can't replace you and save the Zhang family. Yuji, if there's anything you need, just tell me. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll definitely help you complete it. Thank you, uncle. I'm fine now. I don't need anything else. Zhang Yuji shook her head. It's fine. Let me know when you think of something. The eldest uncle of the Zhang family paused for a moment before saying excitedly, Yuji, you also know that this matter concerns the survival of our family. We can't afford any mishaps. If anything happens to us old fellows, it's fine. If anything happens to Chuanqiu and the rest, how can I explain it to our ancestors in the netherworld? How can I face Grandmaster Zhu? Uncle, did something happen? Zhang Yuji couldn't help but ask with a frown when she heard Zhang Chuanqiu's name. What are you still doing here? The next morning, Zhou saw Zhang Yuji standing outside the door the moment he opened it. He had no idea when she had arrived. What? Zhou looked at Zhang Yuji in puzzlement with a blank look. I told you to leave. Don't stay here and cause trouble. Why can't you understand human language? Zhang Yuji said again. Zhou dug his ear and said helplessly, My hearing is getting worse. What did you say? Zhang Yuji didn't say a word as she held Zhou Wen's hand and walked out. It looked like she wanted to forcefully pull Zhou Wen out of the Zhang family. Seeing that Zhang Yuji was serious, Zhou Wen felt that it was useless to feign ignorance. He couldn't shake off Zhang Yuji's hand and stay there. He couldn't do such a thing. Just as Zhou Wen was thinking about what to do, he suddenly realized that the sea of sound around him was gradually receding. He had once again entered the state where he could hear the thoughts of others. I knew it. It wasn't an illusion the last time. Truth listeners' power really can hear the thoughts of others. Zhou Wen was delighted as he hurriedly listened, hoping to know what he could hear this time. This time, Zhou Wen didn't feel that Zhang Yuji had turned into a little girl. She still looked the same, but Zhou Wen heard two voices coming from her. A voice came from her mouth. Zhou Wen could hear it, but he didn't seem to remember it. The other voice also came from her. It was very weak at first, but it became clearer and clearer. Zhou Wen, leave. Don't ever come back. Staying here will only harm you. I don't want to harm my friend again. I'm not worthy of being your friend. Zhou Wen's expression became odder as he heard it more and more clearly. Hurry up and go back. Stop fooling around. Zhang Yuji pulled Zhou Wen out the door and gritted her teeth. After saying that, she turned around and left. The Zhang family's guards closed the door. Zhou Wen looked at the tightly shut door and left the Zhang family. When the Zhang family saw Zhou Wen leave, many of them heaved a sigh of relief. They weren't afraid of Zhou Wen, but they were afraid that Zhou Wen would interfere with their matters. Zhang Chuanqiu stood beside a stone pavilion and looked at Zhang Yuji, who was sitting in the garden in a daze. He couldn't help but sigh. 2 days later, many people in the Zhang family looked nervous. People kept leaving Zhang Manor and heading for the Fiend Tomb. At noon, a car was pushed out of the Zhang family's house. The reason why it was said to be pushed out wasn't because the car was out of gas, but because it was a wooden car. The wooden car's style was very strange. Even the axles and wheels were made of wood. On the car, there was a white cloth that resembled a bed curtain that covered the back of the car. It was impossible to see what was on the car. If one could see through the white cloth, they would see that there was a huge black wood coffin inside. There were many yellow talismans pasted on the coffin. Under the protection of the Zhang family, the wooden carriage containing the coffin was pushed all the way to the fiend tomb. Chapter 13:16. If Zhou saw the current appearance of the fiend tomb, he would definitely be shocked. It could no longer be called a tomb. Not only was there no tomb, but there was also a huge pit that looked like a bottomless pit. Flames rose from the pit as the blazing white flames spewed dozens of meters high. If it wasn't for the seal set up by the Zhang family suppressing it, the flames would have long soared into the sky and made the world know. Even though it was suppressed by the seal, the flames were still unimaginably terrifying. It made the bottomless pit look like the entrance to purgatory. The constantly burning flames turned the surrounding rocks into crystals. Under the illumination of the flames, they shimmered with a demonic glow. The wooden cart stopped not far from the deep pit. The core members of the Zhang family were basically all present. Under Zhang Xiu's lead, they arrived at the edge of the seal. The last time Zhou saw Zhang Xiu was 5 years ago. If Zhou were to see him again now, he probably wouldn't be able to recognize him. Now, Zhang Xiu looked a lot older. It wasn't that his appearance had changed drastically, but that his mental state looked terrible. Zhang Xiu looked at the flaming pit that resembled the entrance to purgatory and fell into a daze for a while. "Family head, we can begin," Uncle Zhang reminded. The Zhang family's eldest uncle reminded. Although he was Zhang Xiu's big brother, at this time, he could only respectfully call him family head. Zhang Xiu seemed to wake up from a dream as he looked at the flaming pit again before retracting his gaze and turning to look at the wooden cart. The Zhang family's gazes followed Zhang Xiu's as they looked at the wooden cart with complicated expressions. "Family head, it's almost time," Uncle Zhang reminded again. "Forget it. Carry it down," Zhang Xiu said. Uncle Zhang waved his hand when he heard that. Immediately, 8 members of the Zhang family carried the coffin down from the wooden cart and carried it in front of them. Zhang Xiu walked to the front of the coffin and touched the yellow paper talisman on the coffin lid with his finger. With a strange expression, he said, "Ever since our celestial master received the gift of heaven and established our celestial master lineage, the Zhang family has never been so humiliated." Uncle Zhang said, "Family head, you can't say that. Ever since the ancestral celestial master, our Zhang family has been entangled with her. We have also been guarding the fiend tomb all this time. We have been severely affected by her aura. The Zhang family's bloodline has long been deeply rooted with demonic aura. This is the cause of our Zhang family's actions, and it is also the result we deserve. If she really comes into being like this, all of us in the Zhang clan will be possessed by the devil, and Yuji will not be an exception." Everyone in the Zhang family was dejected. Although the first uncle of the Zhang family was right, the Zhang family was deeply affected by the Hanba, and the Hanba could no longer be suppressed. It was necessary for it to come out into the world. As long as Drought Demon was born, the Zhang family would be infected by the aura of the fiend tomb after guarding it for so many years. The demonic nature hidden in their bodies would erupt and they would become monsters that were neither human nor fiend. After experiencing the corrosion and inheritance of the demonic aura for countless years, the demonic nature had already penetrated deep into the bones of the Zhang family. As long as Drought Demon was born, it would be useless even if the Zhang family fled to the ends of the world. Originally, the Zhang family had been searching for a solution to this problem, but they didn't have a good solution. They watched as the fiend tomb changed day by day and Drought Demon was about to appear again. Just as the Zhang family thought that they were really going to be wiped out, who knew that Drought Demon in the fiend tomb would raise a condition. As long as Zhang Yuji fused with it, even if she was born, it wouldn't trigger the demonic nature in the Zhang family's bodies, allowing the Zhang family to maintain their human nature. It was a fusion and not a contract. This made many people in the Zhang family unable to accept it. If it was a contract, Zhang Yuji would at least still be alive. However, fusion was equivalent to the reverse of Wang Mingyuan fusing with the Guardian. The guardian would be the main body and fuse with Zhang Yuji's body. Although Drought Demon would still retain some of Zhang Yuji's characteristics, his thoughts would be the complete thoughts of Drought Demon. Zhang Yuji would be no different from being completely dead. However, reality was cruel. Although the choice between the death of the entire family and the death of Zhang Yuji was difficult, the answer was obvious. Family head, let me send my sister off one last time, Zhang Chuanxiu said softly. Can you? Zhang Xiao was slightly taken aback as he asked Zhang Chuanxiu. The Zhang family doted on Zhang Yuji, and Zhang Chuanxiu had the best relationship with her. Originally, Zhang Xiao didn't want Zhang Chuanxiu to come, but he insisted on coming. I can. I want to accompany my sister on this final journey, Zhang Chuanxiu said. Let Chuanxiu send her off. Chuanxiu and Yuji have the best relationship. With Chuanxiu sending her off, Yuji will feel more at ease, Uncle Zhang persuaded. In fact, Uncle Zhang was willing to speak up for Zhang Chuanxiu because many people in the Zhang family didn't agree to using Zhang Yuji to make a deal with Drought Demon. If Zhang Chuanxiu, who had the best relationship with Zhang Yuji, personally sent Zhang Yuji to Drought Demon, the others would have nothing to say. Go on. No matter how difficult the path ahead is, you have to continue. Take care of yourself, Zhang Xiao said as he patted Zhang Chuanxiu on the shoulder. Chuanxiu understands. It's the same for you. Zhang Chuanxiu bowed respectfully before walking to the coffin's side. He stroked the coffin and said, Sister, I'm here to send you off. I'll accompany you on this final journey. With that said, Zhang Chuanxiu reached out and lifted the coffin, placing it on his shoulder. The person carrying the coffin wanted to come forward to help, but he was stopped by Zhang Chuanxiu. I can do it myself. With that said, Zhang Chuanxiu carried the coffin and walked towards the fire pit step by step. When the coffin reached the crystallized rock, the flames in the pit suddenly erupted, instantly burning the seal set up by the Zhang family to ashes. Thousands of yellow paper talismans rose in the flames and turned to ashes. Blazing white flames soared into the sky like an aurora, illuminating the nearby mountains. At the same time, the scorching power roasted all the plants dry. Ordinary animals were unable to escape. In the middle of the flame pillar, a huge flower that seemed to be condensed from flames appeared. That flower looked like a lotus, but there was something different about it. Every single petal was pure white and translucent, without a trace of impurities. However, the powerful energy contained within it was as if a single petal could turn the entire world into a fiery purgatory. Place her in the flower and the grudge between me and the Zhang family will be written off. From now on, you don't have to suffer the pain of the demonic nature anymore. A strange female voice sounded from the fire pit. Zhang Chuanxiu carried the coffin and stared at the flower. He said calmly, Legend has it that Drought Demon was originally a goddess who helped Emperor Huang defeat the Count of Wind and Master of Rain. As she didn't return to the heavenly realm in time, she could only wander the north. However, the power of fire on Goddess Drought Demon was too powerful. Wherever she passed, there was scorched land. Therefore, she was cursed by people. In the end, God sent down punishment, turning her into a corpse that was buried deep underground. She never saw the light of day again. It's just a legend. The woman's voice actually answered Zhang Chuanxiu. Zhang Chuanxiu nodded and continued, In my Zhang family, there's another legend. Before the ancestral celestial master died, he once said that if the Drought Demon wants to return to the world, he has to meet 3 conditions. I wonder if it's true? Chapter 13-17. Chuanxiu, what are you doing? Do what you have to do. Uncle Zhang felt that something was amiss. Zhang Chuanxiu ignored him. Without hearing the woman's answer, he continued, Earth-fire movement, corpse peanut, and living dead. Only when these 3 conditions are met can Drought Nanny be born. Even if I don't appear, destroying the Zhang family will be a piece of cake. Drought Nanny's voice finally sounded again. By saying that, she seemed to have tacitly agreed to Zhang Chuanxiu's 3 conditions. Zhang Chuanxiu continued, of course. If you want to destroy my Zhang family, there's no need for you to go through so much trouble. All you need to do is trigger the demonic nature in us. However, I heard that earth fire is an extreme yin fire. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the flames of hell. The corpse flower produced in the earth fire is the source of all yin. It's most compatible with your strength. Half of the reason you're suppressed here is because you're being suppressed, but the other half is probably because you want to use the power of the earth fire and corpse flower to improve yourself. Are these also the last words of that Zhang fellow? Drought Nanny asked. Zhang Chuanxiu didn't answer as he continued, from the looks of it, you've almost succeeded. However, this extreme yin power can't break through the laws and exist in this world. It's not a power that should exist in this world. Therefore, you have to use a human body to descend into this world again. However, this person is not an ordinary person. What you need is to be able to withstand the extreme yin fire, but not to have a pure yin attribute physique. This kind of physique is extremely rare. Even in the Zhang family, which has been invaded by demonic qi for countless years, I'm afraid that only my little sister has such a physique. So what? Drought Nanny didn't deny it. Therefore, no matter how strong you are, even if you can destroy our Zhang family without even moving a finger, if you can't obtain my sister's body, you won't be able to truly establish yourself in this world. You will still have to live in hiding, Zhang Chuanxiu said. Chuanxiu, what are you doing? Uncle Zhang's voice was agitated. Clearly, he was furious. If Drought Nanny was angered, the entire Zhang family, even the Zhang family, would not be able to escape the calamity. This was because the demonic nature had already penetrated deep into the Zhang family's genes. Family head. Seeing that Zhang Chuanxiu was ignoring him, Uncle Zhang wanted Zhang Xiu to give the order to stop Zhang Chuanxiu from spouting nonsense. Zhang Xiu just said lightly, Chuanxiu is a child who knows his limits. He knows what he should do and what he shouldn't do. Eldest Uncle Zhang wanted to say something more, but Hanba Goddess spoke again. He could only endure it for the time being. Everything you said is correct. Then, do you dare to use the lives of your entire family to stop me from coming into being? Goddess Hanba said indifferently. I don't dare. I just have a small condition. If you can be born, my Zhang family will have worked hard even if we don't have any credit. It's not too much to raise a small condition, right? Zhang Chuanxiu said. Tell me, what kind of conditions do you have? Goddess Droughtba asked. I want to contract you. Zhang Chuanxiu seemed to have already thought of it as he blurted out. That's really a small condition. Goddess Droughtba said sarcastically. Don't you know that once I fuse with a human body, I don't need to contract with humans like ordinary guardians. I can also break through the restrictions of Earth's laws? I know that you don't need a contract, but that doesn't mean you can't. My condition is that you have to contract me and become my guardian. The time limit is 10 years. After 10 years, you can stay on your own. Otherwise, even if the Zhang family is wiped out, you can forget about obtaining her, Zhang Chuanxiu said as he stroked the coffin. Zhang. Chun. Qiu. Uncle Zhang was alarmed and angry. He never expected Zhang Chuanxiu to have such a plan. He was using the lives of the entire Zhang family to satisfy his selfish desires. Do you think you still have the right to negotiate with me? Goddess Droughtba said. Yes. Zhang Chuanxiu said firmly, if you can forcefully snatch her away, there's no need to negotiate with us. Since you are negotiating with us, we naturally have the value to negotiate. Don't you think so? Whoosh. The earth fire suddenly surged and instantly enveloped the nearby area. It wasn't just Zhang Chuanxiu. Even everyone in the Zhang family was enveloped by the earth fire. Strangely, the Zhang family members weren't burned to death. Even their clothes weren't ignited. However, the hair and eyes of many of the Zhang family members began to turn blazing white. Their fingernails also turned like jade as they rapidly grew. Many members of the Zhang family fell to the ground with their hands on their heads in pain. It was as if something was gnawing at their brains. Zhang Chuanqiu was the first to bear the brunt. The other's hair was only slowly turning white, but his hair instantly turned white. His eyes also turned white like jade. From afar, he looked like a blind person. Zhang Chuanqiu's body trembled violently, but he didn't scream like the others, nor did he fall to the ground to hug his head and wail. He still stood there with the coffin and silently endured everything. His hair, his eyes, his nails, and even his skin had all turned snow-white in the blazing flames. Under the burning of the flames, even his life force seemed to be rapidly draining away. "You will die in 30 seconds. Drought Nanny's voice sounded again, like a high and mighty monarch. "Chuanqiu, stop fooling around. You will kill all of us." Uncle Zhang endured the pain of his splitting headache, and wanted to rush over to send the coffin into the corpse flower on Zhang Chuanqiu's behalf. However, just as he stood up, he was held down by Zhang Xiu. "Brother, what are you doing? Do you want our Zhang family to be wiped out?" Uncle Zhang said angrily. He didn't even address him as family head. Zhang Xiu said expressionlessly, "The Zhang family only has people who live standing, not ghosts who die on their knees. It's fine to negotiate, but it has to be fair. She took away someone from our Zhang family, so she has to return one." "Nonsense. Capture Zhang Chuanqiu," Zhang Xiu ordered his trusted aide. However, just as his trusted aide stepped forward, he was stopped by the Zhang family. "All of you! Do all of you not want to live?" Uncle Zhang was alarmed and angry. "Our Zhang family has an ancestral celestial master and a hero king. Just as the family head said, since ancient times, there have only been living heroes of the Zhang family. There have never been trash of the Zhang family who die on their knees. Even if they become demons, the Zhang family has to be the devil incarnate and not the demonic hounds who struggle on their last breaths." An elder from the Zhang family who was on the brink of death slumped to the ground. He grabbed a walking stick with both hands and forcefully propped up his upper body. He shouted at Zhang Chuanqiu, "Child, go ahead and do it. The Zhang family can be afraid of death, but you can't die in a cowardly manner." Bam! The elder raised his walking stick and smashed it hard on his head. Immediately, blood flowed down from his head as he collapsed to the ground. Chapter 13:18. Do you want to see the Zhang family die? Drought Nanny's voice sounded again. 20 years. Zhang Chuanqiu's voice was still as firm as iron. Every death of the Zhang family means 10 more years. You have to return what you took from the Zhang family. You still have 10 seconds. Drought Nanny's cold voice floated over again. Time ticked by, but Zhang Chuanqiu remained unmoved. His palm was already pressed on the coffin as he calmly muttered to himself, "Sister, I'll take you with me." Seeing that Zhang Chuanqiu was about to demonize, he was prepared to destroy the coffin when the surrounding earth fire suddenly converged. Although the Zhang family's demonization symptoms didn't recover, it didn't worsen. 20 years. I'll allow it. Drought Nanny finally gave in. Just as Zhang Chuanqiu had said, if she had the ability to snatch Zhang Yuji away, she wouldn't have negotiated with the Zhang family. It was easy to kill Zhang Yuji, but to fuse with her, Zhang Yuji had to be willing to cooperate. If she really killed everyone in the Zhang family, Zhang Yuji would definitely not be willing to fuse with her. Then swear an oath to the world. Zhang Chuanqiu remained calm. He didn't have the joy of escaping death. "Do you really want to die?" Drought Nanny said coldly. "I just don't want to die without knowing why," Zhang Chuanqiu said indifferently. "I swear in my name, Drought Nanny, that I'm willing to contract this human for 20 years. If I violate this oath, the world will hate me." Drought Nanny ultimately couldn't resist the temptation of escaping and swore an oath. "Sister, don't blame me. I have no choice. After hearing Drought Nanny's oath, Zhang Chuanxiu carried the coffin and walked towards the corpse flower. The corpse flower was snow-white and crystalline. It looked untainted, but it emitted a demonic aura that left one shuddering. Uncle Zhang finally heaved a sigh of relief. Although the process was very dangerous, the Zhang family was finally safe. Furthermore, to be able to contract an existence like Drought Nanny for 20 years, the Zhang family's rise was just around the corner. In the future, they might even become the true ruler of Earth, and not just one of the 6 hero families. At that moment, Uncle Zhang suddenly felt that although Zhang Chuanxiu's actions were a little too risky, he had also obtained huge benefit. Under everyone's gaze, Zhang Chuanxiu carried the coffin to corpse flower and slowly placed it on it. Just as the corpse was about to devour the coffin, Uncle Zhang suddenly saw Zhang Chuanxiu's hand emit a golden glow. Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. Urgent like a decree. Infinite heaven and earth. Borrowing the power of the universe. 5 lightning heavenly constellation. Zhang Chuanxiu's white hair and robe fluttered. He was still protected by a heroic spirit as the yellow talisman in his hand emitted a golden glow. He was too close to corpse flower. No one had the time to stop him. The moment the yellow talisman touched corpse flower, it exploded with golden lightning. The golden lightning contained a kind of extreme yang power. It instantly turned corpse flower into ashes with a single touch. The eldest uncle of the Zhang family opened his mouth wide. He was dumbfounded. He muttered to himself nervously, No, impossible. How could this be impossible? We can't die, we can't die." Many people from the Zhang family were also alarmed. They never expected Zhang Chuanxiu to dare do this. No one knew that Zhang Chuanxiu would do this. Zhang Xiu seemed somewhat relieved. The Celestial Master 5 Lightning Talisman, left behind by the Dao Ancestor Celestial Master, was meant for Zhang Chuanxiu to protect his life. Although he didn't tell Zhang Xiu that Zhang Chuanxiu had used it to destroy corpse flower, Zhang Xiu felt that it was Zhang Chuanxiu's doing. Although he knew that the Zhang family wouldn't be able to escape the calamity, he couldn't be blamed. "Do you know what you are doing?" Drought Nirvana's cold voice sounded. "Earth Fire, Corpse Peanut, and Zombie. All 3 are indispensable. Now that you don't have corpse flower, it's useless even if you have a zombie. I only know that you won't be able to appear." Zhang Chuanxiu remained calm. "Your impulse will cost the entire Zhang family," Drought Nirvana said again. "Death? It doesn't matter. I've already done what I want to do. Even if everyone in the Zhang family dies, one person won't die. That's enough." Zhang Chuanxiu's white robe fluttered as he exerted force with both hands and pressed them on the coffin. A net-like golden light covered the coffin, causing it to instantly vanish. "I'm afraid death will only be an extravagant hope for you." With Drought Nirvana's voice, the earth fire rose again and enveloped the Zhang family. "Let's go. Run as far as you can." Although Zhang Xiu knew that it was useless to escape, it was better than standing and waiting for death. Some of the Zhang family members fled, while others were still hesitating. However, they saw 7th granduncle, who had committed suicide, crawl up from the ground. He wiped the blood off his head and quickly flew back. As he flew, he shouted, "What are you waiting for? Why aren't you running? It has always been the Zhang family catching ghosts. Do you want to become dead ghosts?" Everyone was stunned before they were overjoyed. They fled with 7th granduncle. Unfortunately, although they fled quickly, how could they be faster than an existence like Drought Nirvana? As they flew in the sky, the earth fire had already enveloped them. Many Zhang family members fell to the ground. Their hair, skin, nails, and pupils rapidly turned white as they were demonized. Zhang Chuanxiu didn't escape. He knew that he couldn't escape. Looking at the Zhang family members who were demonized in pain, Zhang Chuanxiu felt somewhat guilty, but he didn't regret his decision. He had done what he wanted to do and saved the person he wanted to save. It was enough that one person from the Zhang family could survive, and it was a person who wasn't affected by the demonic nature. Everyone in the Zhang clan will become devils because of what you have done. They will no longer have the emotions of humans. They will not be human nor ghost. They will devour blood as if it was their own life. They will feed on their own kind. For one person, you sacrificed everyone. Do you regret it now? Draupnir asked coldly. Even if I know that I'm a demon, there are things I have to do. Why regret it? Zhang Chuanxiu said frankly. Is that so? Some people might not think so. Draupnir seemed to be referring to something. Zhang Chuanxiu's expression changed slightly because he had already seen Zhang Yuji, who he had sent away with the 5 ghosts transportation technique, walk back. Yuji, don't come over. Leave this place immediately. Zhang Chuanxiu wanted to charge at Zhang Yuji, but his body was already heavily demonized. Instead, he fell to the ground. Zhang Yuji looked at the Zhang family members who had transformed into ghosts. As she walked over, she said with tears in her eyes, Brother, if I continue living like this, my life will be worse than death. Fool, it's useless even if you return now. Without the corpse flower, Draupnir can't be born. She won't let us off either. You will only be sending yourself to your death if you return. Zhang Chuanxiu said. That might not be the case. Draupnir's voice was filled with mockery. With her voice, the corpse flower condensed in the flames again. Chapter 13:19. Zhang Chuanxiu's expression instantly turned ashen as he looked at Zhang Yuji in despair. Yuji! Don't! Zhang Chuanxiu tried his best to stand up and stop Zhang Yuji, but his body was already heavily demonized. He couldn't even stand up. All you want is me. Let them go. I agree to fuse with you, said Zhang Yuji. Of course, to me, they are no different from ants by the roadside. Trampling them to death won't bring any benefits, but there won't be any disadvantages either. As long as you fuse with me, I can guarantee their safety and recovery, said Drought Demon. Child, let's go. You have done enough for the Zhang family. Now, you are the only one in the Zhang family who isn't affected by the demonic nature. You are the person who should live on the most in the Zhang family, said Zhang Xiu. Yuji. No. Zhang Chuanxiu's eyes were filled with despair because he knew that with Zhang Yuji's personality, it was impossible for her to leave now. Brother, I'm an unlucky person to begin with. I should have died long ago. I'm already satisfied to be able to do something for you in the end. Zhang Yuji walked towards corpse flower with tears streaming down her face. No. Zhang Chuanxiu struggled with all his might. His fingers pressed against the ground and were about to snap. The blood on his fingertips dyed the ground. Zhang Xiu and company were also shouting loudly, but they couldn't stop Zhang Yuji from walking towards corpse flower. The one who deserves to die isn't you, but those who made you cry. A voice sounded from not far away. Everyone was taken aback as they turned to look in the direction of the voice. They saw an armored figure bathing in light walking towards the fiend tomb step by step. Human sovereign. Someone immediately recognized the figure and couldn't help but be overjoyed. The dragon-imprisoned armor and the immortal culling sword by Zhou Wen's waist were just too eye-catching. Almost everyone on Earth knew them. Zhang Yuji turned to look at Zhou Wen. After seeing him clearly, she was slightly taken aback. Her eyes were filled with pleasant surprise and a little awed. Zhou Wen walked over step by step and stepped into the earth fire. The strange earth fire didn't cause any damage to his body as though it didn't exist. He walked past Zhang Yuji and walked towards corpse flower. As he walked, he held the hilt of the immortal culling sword. Who are you? Drought Demon's voice sounded from the deep pit. Someone who doesn't like you and wants to kill you, Zhou Wen said. Why are humans always so ignorant? Why do they always say such self-righteous things? There was a hint of anger in the drought goddess voice. It seemed she was truly angry. That's because there are too many idiots out there. If I say it in a roundabout way, they won't understand. With every step Zhou took, the sword intent on his body grew stronger. At that moment, the sword intent was unimaginably powerful. Before the immortal culling sword was unsheathed, the sword intent seemed to condense into something corporeal, as though it could split the ground apart. Inside the flames, a figure appeared. The corpse flower automatically flew to that figure's forehead and disappeared in the blink of an eye. That figure was wearing a white dress, and her face was covered with a white veil. It was hard to see what she looked like, but from her voice, it was obvious that she was goddess Drought Ba. Even in the mythological era where natural disasters were everywhere, no one dared to speak to me like this. Goddess Hanba's eyes turned cold. Clearly, she was truly angry with Zhou. Then I'll be more tactful. If you can survive a strike from me, I'll spare your life and allow you to continue staying in the fiend tomb, Zhou said. Die. Goddess Hanba was already furious. The flames on her body turned into a monstrous aura, turning the entire sky into a sea of flames. It was as though the entire world only had flames left. The endless heavenly fire turned everything in it into scorched earth. Goddess Hanba's fire could incinerate everything. It was not inferior to the true fire of the sun. In fact, it was even more bizarre and terrifying. Seeing the monstrous flames devour the heaven and earth, they pressed towards Human Emperor. Under the heavenly fire, Human Emperor's radiant figure seemed to become much smaller. The Zhang family was worried if Human Emperor could withstand Hanba's heavenly fire. It was a terrifying flame that could defeat the two gods, Count of Wind and Master of Rain. You don't. Zhang Yuji's expression was complicated. She seemed to want to say something. However, before she could finish her sentence, Zhou had already unsheathed his sword. The moment the immortal culling sword was unsheathed, heaven, earth, and everything in the world seemed to freeze. The rainbow-like sword aura cut through everything in the void, directly splitting the heavenly fire into two. It was as though the sky had been split open. One sword slashed through the 9 heavens. Zhang Yuji and the others only saw a flash of sword light. The sky that was covered by heavenly fire was split into two, revealing the originally clear sky. When they looked at Hanba again, they saw that on her snow-white clothes, there was a purple lava-like liquid on her chest. It was dripping to the ground. When the purple liquid dripped to the ground, every drop contained scorching energy. When it came into contact with the crystal, it would immediately burn through, forming a tiny hole that was so deep that it could not be seen. It was unknown where the liquid finally dripped to. Hanba is injured. Everyone in the Zhang family was surprised and happy. They were happy that the Zhang family might be saved, but they were shocked that Human Emperor could actually injure the almost invincible Hanba with one sword strike. He was indeed the strongest existence among the humans. If he had attacked a few more times, wouldn't he be able to kill Goddess Hanba? Zhou was a little shocked. He originally wanted to use the power of the immortal slaying strike and the immortal culling sword to severely injure Goddess Hanba or even kill her. However, his sword strike only injured Goddess Hanba. He couldn't even severely injure her, let alone kill her. Zhou could feel that Goddess Hanba's injury wasn't serious. As expected of the legendary Goddess Hanba, she's really too strong. Zhou was secretly amazed. Goddess Hanba's eyes were glowing fiercely. She glared at Zhou as though she wanted to eat him. Even during the mythological era, she had never been injured when she fought against other extremely powerful guardians and creatures of other dimensions. Now, she was actually injured by Zhou. Part of the reason was that she couldn't integrate with humans and was severely suppressed by the rules of Earth, so she couldn't fully unleash her strength. However, Goddess Hanba still couldn't accept such an outcome. Her heart was filled with killing intent, and she was determined to kill Zhou. Goddess Hanba was naturally a knowledgeable person. She could tell that the immortal culling sword was extraordinary, so she was somewhat afraid. However, Zhou knew that the immortal culling sword was just a decoration in his hands. It's quite rare for you to survive my sword strike. It's not easy for you to evolve to this stage. It's a pity to kill you, so I'll spare your life. Zhou hung the immortal culling sword back on his waist and glanced at Goddess Hanba. He seemed to speak casually. Zhou's words almost made Goddess Hanba's lungs explode. Even during the mythological era with countless experts, no one dared to speak to her like this. Chapter 1320. Zhou had tried to infuriate Drought Demon from the beginning, not because he was arrogant, nor did he really believe that he could stand above a calamity-grade creature. The immortal culling sword was indeed very powerful, but Zhou was too weak. He wasn't able to unleash the full power of the immortal culling sword. It was fine to occasionally strike, but if he failed, he basically didn't have the ability to continue fighting. The reason why he had wanted to infuriate Drought Demon from the beginning was because of Truth Listener's ability. During this period of time, Zhou had basically figured out Truth Listener's ability. Just as he had imagined, Truth Listener did have the ability to hear the thoughts of others. However, this ability wasn't perfect. Under normal circumstances, it couldn't hear the other party's thoughts. Only when the other party's emotions were extremely fluctuating could it be heard. Drought Demon had never suffered such humiliation before. At that moment, her emotions were extremely volatile. Zhou finally felt the sea of voices around him gradually dissipate. Although Drought Demon didn't say a word, a voice sounded from her. I want to roast him inch by inch and let him taste all the pain in the world. I'll make him beg for death and regret being born into this world. However, the sword in his hand is a little odd. It can actually injure my body. And I haven't fused with a human's body. I'm suppressed by Earth's laws and can't leave the fiend tomb. Drought Demon didn't say a word, but her thoughts betrayed all her thoughts to Zhou. Zhou was overjoyed when he heard the Drought Demon goddess's voice. However, his face was calm and composed. He was still thinking that if his strike failed and Truth Listener couldn't be summoned, it would be difficult for him to fight a calamity-grade creature. He might even have to flee. At most, he could take Zhang Yuji with him and escape. He only had this much power and could only do so many things. Now that he knew that Drought Demon couldn't leave the fiend tomb and that her strength was suppressed by Earth's laws, preventing her from fully unleashing her strength in battle, he immediately felt a lot more at ease. Zhou thought to himself, since you can't come out and can't use your full strength, and I can hear your thoughts, this matter might still work. Drought Demon was pondering. That sword is a little strange. It can even slice through my Drought Demon body. It's indeed quite powerful. However, the strength of that human should not have reached the calamity grade. He is only borrowing the power of the sword. I do not need to fight with that sword. As long as I kill that human, the sword will naturally be useless. Drought Maiden sized Zhou up and thought, if I don't go out, I might not be able to injure him if I use heavenly fire that covers a large area. From the looks of it, I have to expend some of my intrinsic quintessential essence and use annihilation art to kill that human. Goddess Drought Ba stared at Zhou as her essence energy flowed towards her fingers. Zhou sensed that Goddess Hanba's voice was slowly weakening. He knew that it had been some time and that her emotions were gradually stabilizing. Therefore, he continued goading her. Why are you still standing there? I've said it before. If I can't kill you with one strike, I'll spare your life. However, the death penalty can be avoided, but the punishment cannot be forgiven. Go back to the fiend tomb and reflect on your mistake. As long as I am alive, you will never come out. Go. Goddess Hanba was furious. Her emotions that had just calmed down were instantly stirred up by Zhou again. Goddess Hanba had a bad temper. Otherwise, she would not have been able to fight against two terrifying existences, Count of the Wind and Master of the Rain in the mythological era. However, it was also because of that battle that Goddess Hanba's essence energy was greatly damaged. She had no choice but to recuperate in the earth fire. Later on, the ancestral celestial master of the Zhang family took the opportunity to seal her. Annihilation art. Die. Goddess Hanba was already extremely furious. One of her hands turned invisible and grabbed at the void. The instant before Goddess Hanba made her move, Zhou Wen's figure drifted to the side. After he moved, the ground where he was originally standing and the rocks that had been burned into crystals suddenly cracked. A cylindrical crystal with a diameter of several meters was forcibly pulled out from the crystal. The crystal pillar was pulled out a few hundred meters high before it mysteriously disappeared. Only a circular hole that was a few hundred meters deep was left on the ground. Goddess Hanba was shocked. Her annihilation art was unique in the world. It killed people invisibly. When she attacked, the enemy would not be able to detect it at all. When the annihilation art reached them, it was already too late to escape. Back then, Goddess Hanba relied on the annihilation art to roam the world. She had killed countless terrifying guardians and creatures of other dimensions. Her name struck terror in people. The name of Hanba was practically synonymous with death. Even if there were people who could resist it, they were extremely few powerful existences. Almost all of them were invincible experts of their era. However, most of them could only forcefully endure the annihilation art. In Goddess Hanba's memory, she had only met one person who could evade it like Zhou Wen. Could it be that this fellow is related to the Empress? Drought Maiden sized up Zhou Wen in bewilderment. However, from the essence chi fluctuations that Zhou Wen emitted, he was different from the one that Goddess Hanba imagined. Or it could be said that they were two completely different types of energy that could not be related. Is it a coincidence? Goddess Hanba activated the annihilation art once again. The drought demon goddess would never have guessed that Zhou Wen was able to dodge her annihilation art. It was because she had already told him the timing and location of the annihilation art. All he needed to do was evade it in advance. If Zhou Wen only relied on his senses, he would not be able to dodge the annihilation art. Goddess Hanba's annihilation art was naturally dodged by Zhou Wen again. Impossible! Goddess Hanba was shocked when she saw that Zhou Wen had actually dodged it again. I've said it before. If you can survive a strike from me, I'll spare your life. However, if you insist on seeking death, I can't not fulfill your wish. Zhou Wen slowly walked towards Goddess Hanba. As he walked, he said, "If you haven't gone back to reflect on your mistakes by the time I reach the Fiend Tomb, there's no need for you to go back." Goddess Hanba was shocked and furious. She steeled her heart and struck out with the annihilation art again and again. Unfortunately, Zhou Wen had already heard all of her thoughts. He had even formed an image in his mind, so he knew where her next strike would land. Therefore, she saw Zhou Wen's figure floating like an immortal. It was as though he was taking a leisurely stroll in the courtyard. With every step, he dodged Goddess Hanba's annihilation art. Goddess Hanba's frenzied attacks did not touch Zhou Wen at all. Seeing that Zhou Wen had already walked to the front of the Fiend Tomb, Goddess Hanba was extremely shocked. Does he really have a great divine power? It's just that he's too strong and has hidden it very well. That's why I can't tell. Otherwise, if he could dodge my annihilation art so easily, it's as though he can predict the future. The way Zhou Wen dodged the annihilation art made Goddess Hanba think of the Great Empress. Although their essence chi waves were completely different, the way he dodged the annihilation art was very similar. Therefore, she was even more shocked and doubtful. Chapter 13:21. The people of the Zhang family were extremely excited when they saw that the human emperor didn't even draw his sword. He just walked casually and neutralized the ghostly attack of Goddess Hanba. However, some people disapproved of the human emperor's actions. They felt that the human emperor shouldn't be soft-hearted. He should have just killed Goddess Hanba. Why did he have to give her a chance? It was equivalent to releasing a tiger back into the mountains. Goddess Hanba was also somewhat puzzled. If the person in front of her was really strong, why did he have to talk nonsense with her? He could have just drawn his sword and killed her. Why did he have to give her a chance? Goddess Hanba was still hesitant as she watched Zhou walk towards her. She was once an invincible existence after all. In that era, humans were not even comparable to ants in front of her. She could travel thousands of miles in a day, and wherever she passed, she wouldn't even spare a glance. Tens of thousands of humans would be roasted into charcoal by the heavenly fire on her body, and that was just an unconscious action of hers. In this era, she was actually asked to lower her head and admit defeat to a human. She also had to reflect on her mistake. She couldn't take this lying down. Goddess Hanba even thought that even if the human emperor really had the ability to kill her, he would at most fight to the death. It was simply a dream for her to lower her head to a human. Of course, Zhou didn't really want to kill Goddess Hanba. Even if he really wanted to, he didn't have the ability to do so. With Di Ting's ability, he could scare Goddess Hanba. If they really fought, he was definitely not a match for her. Seeing that he was getting closer to the Fiend Tomb and was only a few steps away, Goddess Hanba still had no intention of returning to the Fiend Tomb. 3 steps, 2 steps, 1 step. Zhou was already standing in front of the Fiend Tomb, but Goddess Hanba still had no intention of returning. She was still attacking. Clearly, she had made up her mind to fight to the death. Seeing this situation, the people of the Zhang family felt that the human emperor could only fight Goddess Hanba. They even looked forward to seeing if the human emperor could kill Goddess Hanba. Zhou grabbed the hilt of the immortal culling sword again, but he didn't pull it out. Instead, he sighed softly and said regretfully, "I'm the only one in the world. All the gods and demons in the world have to worship me. Can't I accept your worship?" When the members of the Zhang family heard Zhou suddenly say that, they were slightly taken aback. Although human emperor was powerful and was publicly recognized as the #1 expert of the human race, it was too much to say that he was the supreme being in the world and that all the gods and demons had to worship him. Wasn't that a little too arrogant? Moreover, anyone could see that Goddess Hanba was prepared to fight to the death. How could she possibly bow down to him? However, when the Drought Maiden heard that, her body trembled. She stared at Zhou in disbelief. She was simply too familiar with those words. Back then, her Lady Empress had also stood before her and said those words. Although she couldn't see Zhou face, Zhou tone and demeanor resembled the Great Empress back then. Furthermore, only she and the Great Empress were present back then. It was unlikely that anyone else knew about it. For a moment, Goddess Hanba was in a daze. It was as though she had seen the Great Empress again. "What are you still standing there for? Are you waiting for me to send you off?" Zhou had eavesdropped on her thoughts and knew the scene of her and the Great Empress back then. That was why he said that. This sentence made Goddess Hanba feel as though she was struck by lightning. She looked at Zhou with a complicated expression as though she had seen a ghost. Something unexpected happened. Although Goddess Hanba, who was prepared to fight to the death, didn't really bow, she bowed to human emperor before turning around and disappearing into the Fiend Tomb. The surging earth fire also quickly retracted with Goddess Hanba's disappearance. In a moment, all the flames in the sky returned to the Fiend Tomb. Only a voice echoed in the air, "I'll wait for the day you pass away." Zhang Xiao and the rest were astonished. Goddess Hanba's words were tantamount to admitting what human emperor had said previously. As long as human emperor didn't die, she wouldn't appear. With Goddess Hanba's return to the Fiend Tomb, the signs of demonization on the Zhang family members improved. However, they didn't completely recover, especially those like Zhang Chuanqiu who were severely demonized. There weren't many changes. His hair was still white, and his eyes and nails were as white as jade. However, his complexion looked much better. He wasn't as pale as before. "Your grace is something that the Zhang family can't repay. If you need the Zhang family's help in the future, just say the word." As long as it doesn't violate human ethics, Zhang Xiao, will definitely be there. Zhang Xiao only mentioned his name in the end, but he didn't mention the Zhang family. His words sounded like he was avoiding the important and dwelling on the trivial, but from another perspective, it was also a serious promise. I hope that the Zhang family will live up to your words in the future. After Zhou Wen said that, he glanced at Uncle Zhang before turning around and tearing through the air. In an instant, he transformed into a stream of light and vanished. Uncle Zhang's face turned red. He was undoubtedly the representative of the Zhang family who wanted to live on his knees. Zhang Yuji supported Zhang Chuanqiu and looked in the direction where Zhou Wen had disappeared, seemingly deep in thought. Human Emperor is really not something we can reach. In the past, I thought that Human Emperor was only one step ahead of me. Sooner or later, I would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. From the looks of it today, it's not just one step. Zhang Chuanqiu marveled before smiling. Thankfully, that's the case. Otherwise, our Zhang family would be finished. This Human Emperor is indeed interesting. I wonder if his true identity is a pure human. If he's a pure human, he deserves the title of Human Emperor. Probably. Zhang Yuji's eyes were complicated as she was somewhat distracted. On the way back, Zhang Yuji suddenly thought of something. She took out her phone and sent a message. Zhou Wen was riding the earth elemental beast when he happened to arrive at a place with a signal. When he heard the message, he took out his phone to take a look. When he realized that it was from Zhang Yuji, he clicked it open and nearly fell off the earth elemental beast's back. Your Majesty, help me plant flowers again next time. Listen to music, it should be a guess, right? Zhou Wen was alarmed and puzzled. He didn't know how Zhang Yuji could tell that he was Human Emperor. He hurriedly replied, Did you send it to the wrong person? Do you know Human Emperor? After Zhou Wen sent the message, he waited uneasily for Zhang Yuji's reply. However, after waiting for a while, his message was like a rock sinking into the sea. There was no response at all. Zhang Yuji looked at Zhou Wen's reply on her phone and revealed a sly smile. She closed the conversation box and placed her hand on her chest. She closed her eyes and muttered to herself with a smile, With you around, I won't be afraid of the dark anymore. Zhang Yuji's mind kept echoing the words, The one who shouldn't die isn't you. It's those who made you cry. Chapter 13:22. After waiting for a long time, Zhou Wen finally received a message. However, it wasn't from Zhang Yuji, but Hui Haifeng. Junior brother, I've gotten all the lucky companion beasts that can be obtained. See if it's enough. There was a list behind Hui Haifeng's message. Zhou Wen took a look and realized that there were a total of 11 different types of lucky companion egg. 2 were at the mythical stage, 6 were at the epic stage, and 2 were at the legendary stage. There was even a lucky companion beast at the mortal stage. A companion beast at the mortal stage is already very rare, but it actually has the luck attribute. This is really rare. However, even if a companion beast at the mortal stage adds luck, it shouldn't add much, right? Zhou Wen replied. That's enough. Give me 2 days to prepare before I come to you. There's no need. Just stay in Luoyang. I've already sent someone over. I've also sent the companion beasts over for you. They should be able to reach Luoyang tonight, Hui Haifeng replied. That works too. Zhou Wen didn't insist. As long as he had the magic cube, it didn't matter where he entered the Venus dimensional zone. Junior brother, I've left them to you. They're the people who benefit the most from me. Don't lose them. Hui Haifeng sent another message. Actually, I can go in alone. Zhou Wen felt that it was safer to go alone. Alright, then you have to wear a Federation uniform and stick a small red flag above your head. Just right, Federation soldier. Hui Haifeng replied. I'll bring them up. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and felt that it wasn't a good image. Hee, whatever you say. In order to obtain these lucky companion beasts for you, I spent a huge sum of money. I believe no one can gather such a powerful lineup of lucky companion beasts. Why do you need so many lucky companion beasts? According to what I know, although lucky companion beasts can increase the chances of obtaining dimensional crystals and companion eggs in a certain way, there's actually a threshold. Once it exceeds a certain amount of luck, no matter how many lucky companion beasts you wear, there won't be much of an improvement, Hui Haifeng asked curiously. You'll know in the future. Zhouwen wasn't in the mood to chat with him. He was in a hurry to rush back to Luoyang to see the lucky companion beast. This was because the average person could only rely on the information and experience transmitted by companion beasts to determine the attributes of companion beasts. They were unable to see the exact information. Therefore, Hui Haifeng only knew that they were companion beasts with luck bonuses, but he wasn't sure how much luck they added. Master. Just as Zhouwen returned to Luoyang's and family, he saw Hui Play rush over. Why are you here? Zhouwen was somewhat surprised that Hui Haifeng had followed him. Now, the roads were filled with dimensional zones that had been breached. It was difficult to guarantee his safety. Hui Play could be said to be the future hope of the Hui family. It was too risky to let him out now. I said I wanted to learn from Master, so Father agreed to let me come along, Hui Play said. Zhouwen thought to himself, learn from me? What can you learn from me? I'll learn from you. Hui Quan's talent was too high. No matter what he learned, he could learn it with a single glance. Things like photographic memory and reading 10 lines at a glance were nothing to Hui Quan. Zhouwen suspected that Hui Haifeng had created some advanced technology and created a smart son. Back when Zhouwen was at the Hui family, he had already taught Hui how to play. However, most of the things he knew could only be understood and not explained. Zhouwen had already taught him everything that could be explained. Now that he was asked to teach again, he really had nothing to say. Mr. Zhou, this is what the president instructed us to bring you. Please accept it. An officer in his 30s came in front of Zhouwen with a few other officers. He looked very strange. His face was expressionless. His eyebrows, beard, and facial features looked fake, but Zhouwen was certain that it was just a feeling. There was no special disguise on his face. He looked just like that in real life. There were a total of 11 of them, and each of them had a safe locked on their wrist. Zhouwen didn't need to guess to know that they were the 11 lucky companion eggs that Hui Haifeng had sent over. These 11 officers were likely sent over by Hui Haifeng. When the officers opened the safes, they used the keys in their hands to open the safes of different people. And inside the safes were some special devices. It was as though they could destroy the companion eggs inside the safes as long as they were touched. It was understandable that Hui Haifeng would do so. Although the level of this batch of companion eggs wasn't high, their value was very high. He had to be careful. After Zhouwen signed for it, the expressionless officer who looked like he was wearing a mask said, "The President's orders. From now on, we will listen to your orders. Even if you want us to die, we will definitely carry out your orders immediately." Very good. Go back and rest. Zhouwen nodded. Yes. The soldier didn't ask any questions as he led them back to rest. Master, the things taught by the coaches at home are so boring. I've long wanted to look for you. What else can you teach me? Hui Quan asked as he followed behind Zhouwen. You've already learned very well. Play for 2 days, Zhouwen said. Master, I know that the things you know are very profound. I might not be able to learn them now, but I will definitely work hard, Hui Quan said with a serious expression. Zhouwen looked at Hui Play's serious expression and really couldn't say anything else to shirk the responsibility. However, he wasn't good at teaching to begin with. After some thought, he couldn't think of anything to teach him. Just as he was in a dilemma, he suddenly saw Li Xian walk out of the manor. He didn't know why this fellow had come to the Yin family. Zhouwen was delighted as he coughed lightly and said to Hui Quan, Teaching by example is better than words. While you were at home, you should have learned quite a lot of the theories of others. It's time for some actual combat training. Master, you want to spar with me? Hui Quan's eyes immediately lit up. I was the one who taught you. I know you like the back of my hand. There won't be any effect if you spar with me, Zhou said. Then what should we do? Hui Quan said anxiously. Do you see that person? He's also your father's junior. In that case, you should call him Uncle Master. Spar with him first, Zhou said as he pointed at Li Xian. Is he very powerful? Hui Quan sized up the frivolous Li Xian and was very doubtful. He's average. He can only last 3 strikes from me, but it's enough to be your sparring partner, Zhou said. Master, don't worry. I'll work hard. Hui Quan was even less motivated when he heard that, but he couldn't refute Zhou. He only thought to himself, he can only last 3 strikes from Master. He's not that strong. I'll think of a way to defeat him later and let Master see my improvement. Then, he will probably spar with me personally. Old Zhou, whose child is this? What's he doing? Li Xian walked over and asked. Hui Haifeng's son. He wants me to teach him. Coincidentally, I have something on at the moment. Help me teach him first, Zhou said. Old Hui's son. I have to teach him well. Don't worry. Leave it to me, Li Xian said as he patted his chest. Then I'll leave it to you. I'll get busy. Before Zhou left, he exhorted Hui Quan, little play, learn well from your uncle Li. You'll benefit from it for the rest of your life. When Zhou returned to his room, he eagerly took out the 11 companion eggs and used his phone to appraise their attributes. Chapter 13:23. The 2 mythical companion beasts were the Lucky Stone Sprite and the Good Luck Flower King. Like the baby tiger, they had a lucky life providence, but they added more luck than the baby tiger. The Lucky Stone Sprite gave +9 luck, while the Good Luck Flower gave +7 luck. The 6 epic companion beasts each added 3 to 6 luck. As for the 2 legendary companion beasts, they gave +1 luck. The Lucky Stone Sprite's companion form was a bracelet, while the Good Luck Flower King was a ring. There were all sorts of epic and legendary companion beasts. Zhou did some calculations. Apart from the 2 companion beasts' companion forms that conflicted with the companion beasts he needed to use, there was one that didn't have a companion form. The rest could be used together. The mortal stage lucky companion beast surprised Zhou because it didn't have a luck stat. As for why it was treated as a lucky companion beast, Zhou guessed that it had something to do with its skill. It was obvious that a mortal stage companion beast hadn't revealed its life providence, so it was naturally impossible for it to have a lucky life providence. After carefully looking at the companion beast's information, Zhou realized that it wasn't the case. Death Raven, mortal stage strength, 11 speed, 11 constitution, 11 primordial energy, 11 talent skill, death companion form, wings. After Zhou carefully looked at its stats, he cursed inwardly. He hurriedly found the list Hui Haifeng had given him. He remembered that there was no Death Raven on the list. Indeed, the only mortal stage companion beast on the list was named Magpie, also known as Good News Bird. It wasn't a Death Raven. After careful comparison, Zhou knew that Hui Haifeng must have made a mistake when purchasing it. The Morning Raven's companion egg was very similar to a magpie's. Just from their appearance, it was likely that he had mistaken the Morning Raven for a congratulatory bird. As for whether the person who sold Hui Haifeng the companion egg really didn't know or did it on purpose, Zhou didn't know. This Death Raven is a little odd. It's clearly a low-level mortal companion beast without any evolvable stats, but it has all 11 stats. That's really rare. Zhou thought for a moment and hatched the Death Raven and the other lucky companion eggs. Although reporting for a funeral was indeed annoying, Zhou had always heard from the former principal that good medicine was bitter and true words were heart-wrenching. Reporting for a funeral wasn't a good thing, but it was quite a good ability to give early warnings. After the incubation, Zhou entered the game and wore all the lucky equipment he could wear. Of course, the most important thing was the heavenly robe. The heavenly robe had a special luck evasion ability. As long as the luck attribute was in effect, it could dodge attacks that were originally impossible to dodge. However, Tian Yi's luck was limited. The chances of him dodging with luck were also very low. Zhou had already tested it before. When facing Golden Battle God's bullets, he only had a 10% chance of dodging them. In any case, Zhou had never successfully dodged a calamity-grade bullet. What Zhou wanted to test now was to see if the other lucky equipment on him would affect Heavenly Robe's lucky dodge ability. After entering the dungeon, the metal guards fired their bullets at Zhou. Zhou stood there without moving. The heavenly robe on his body seemed to flutter despite the lack of wind, making him look like an immortal in the wind. The bullets strangely circled around Zhou's body and missed. A large number of bullets shot over, but none of them hit Zhou. All of them automatically deviated from their trajectories. Zhou was slightly delighted. Although heavenly robes could easily dodge the metal guard's bullets in the past, it wasn't as exaggerated. Previously, heavenly robes would still pull Zhou's body to dodge the bullets. However, Zhou was standing there without moving. Just his heavenly robes fluttering allowed him to dodge all the bullet. Clearly, heavenly robe's lucky dodge ability had been strengthened. I wonder how high heavenly robe's dodging efficiency is when facing a Terragrade Golden Battle God. Zhou casually killed all the metal guards and waited for the Golden Battle God to appear. Soon, Golden Battle God Type 1 rushed out. His frost bullet shot out at a speed that ordinary humans couldn't keep up with. Zhou didn't move. He was here purely for the test. Even if he was beaten to death, he had no intention of moving. Heavenly robes fluttered as the Terragrade frost bullet brushed past Heavenly Robe's sleeve and hit the metal building's wall, causing an icy mist to erupt. I dodged the first shot. This effect is a little strong. I'm afraid there's at least a 50% chance. Zhou was even more delighted. He didn't take action and allowed the Golden Battle God to shoot at him. A scene that surprised and delighted Zhou happened. No matter how crazy the Golden Battle God's shooting was, even if Zhou stood still, not a single bullet from the Golden Battle God could hit him. Too powerful. Could it be that with the augmentation of so much luck equipment, Heavenly Robe's lucky dodge has already reached 100%? Zhou dodged more than 100 bullets in a row, but he still wasn't hit. Without continuing the test, Zhou killed the Golden Battle Gods one by one. He wanted to see if Heavenly Robes could dodge a calamity-grade bullet. The alarm sounded, and Zhou was somewhat nervous. When the bullet sounded, Zhou didn't react at all. However, the bullet didn't hit Zhou. Heavenly Robes moved with Zhou's body, dodging the calamity-grade bullet. Holy **T. I really dodged it. I'm rich. With this divine artifact. What's there to be afraid of? Calamity-grade bullets. Zhou had died too many times in the Venus dungeon. He couldn't help but be excited when he suddenly made this discovery. However, he wasn't sure. He took another shot as an experiment, but he managed to dodge it again. This is great. With heavenly robes in hand, I have luck. Who else? Who else can kill me? Zhou felt as though he had eaten a ginseng fruit as his entire body felt comfortable. Bam! With a gunshot, Zhou saw the blood-colored avatar's head explode as the screen went black. The smile on his face instantly turned into shock as his O-shaped mouth didn't close for a long time. Are you kidding me? The third shot hit again? Zhou calmed down and thought about it carefully. He felt that since he could dodge the first two shots, the third shot's might was about the same as the first two. It wasn't the seventh shot that would definitely kill him. It was highly likely that he didn't have enough luck to dodge this shot. When facing a calamity grade, he didn't have a 100% luck dodge. I have to get some more luck equipment to try. Perhaps I can really dodge calamity-grade bullets with 100% accuracy. Zhou thought about where he could get more luck equipment. He had even used the Goddess of Luck necklace that Jing Daoxian had given him to achieve such an effect. He was momentarily at a loss as to where he could get luck companion beasts. Chapter 13:24. Zhou did a lot of research and realized that this lucky companion beast was indeed very rare. It was basically something that could only be chanced upon. Ignoring a mythical lucky companion beast, even an epic lucky companion beast was rare. He asked Gu Dian about it, but the results weren't good. There were 2 lucky companion beasts on the black market, but due to their high prices, no one was willing to buy them. They had been auctioned off a few days ago. Gu Dian refused to say who had bid for them. That was his professional ethics. However, even if he didn't say it, Zhou already knew. This was because the 2 companion beasts were on him. After a round of investigation, Zhou knew that he definitely couldn't find any lucky companion beast. Hui Haifeng had basically plundered all the lucky companion beasts he could get his hands on. Not only did he spend a huge sum of money, it was very likely that he had used his connections and special items to trade. It was almost impossible for Zhou to obtain any lucky companion beasts from the market. Zhou suddenly thought of Wang Lu. Wang Lu had a lucky life providence, and she had quite a number of lucky companion beasts. He wondered if any of them had hatched. "Do you have time? I have something to ask you." Zhou sent Wang Lu a message. "So you only think of me when you're in trouble." Soon, Wang Lu sent a message. Zhou originally wanted to explain, but on second thought it did seem to be the case. Every time he took the initiative to send a message to Wang Lu, it seemed like he needed her help. He couldn't help but blush and couldn't bring himself to ask for Wang Lu's help. "Alright, I know you're a busy person. If there's anything, just say it. After all, you haven't paid off the food you owe me. A few more meals won't make a difference." Wang Lu sent another message. "I'll treat you to a meal in a few days," Zhou replied in embarrassment. "Then I'll have to give you a good beating. I'll make you bleed." Wang Lu asked again, "What's the matter? Hurry up and tell me." "I just want to ask if you have any lucky companion beasts." "I want to buy a few," Zhou said. "I have lucky companion beasts, but I'm not selling them." Wang Lu quickly sent a message back. Zhou was only somewhat disappointed, but he didn't think that Wang Lu was wrong. Lucky companion beasts meant more to Wang Lu than the average person. When an ordinary person obtained a lucky companion beast, they could only increase their luck by a little. However, Wang Lu had enhanced her life providence, making it much more effective than the average person. It could be said that a lucky companion beast was similar to Wang Lu's exclusive companion beast. "I was too muddle-headed. Wang Lu doesn't even have time to collect lucky companion beasts. Why would she sell them?" Zhou felt that he was a little stupid. He hadn't thought of this before. He shouldn't have asked Wang Lu. By asking, he had placed her in a difficult position. "I'm just asking. It's not of much use. I'll look for you in 2 days and treat you to a feast," Zhou sent a message. "I definitely won't sell it, but if you need it urgently, I can lend it to you temporarily." "What do you want a lucky pet for?" Wang Lu sent another message. "Can I borrow it?" Zhou was delighted as he hurriedly said, "I want to use a lucky pet to charge into the Venus dimensional zone. Is it convenient for me to borrow it? Ordinary people wouldn't be able to return a companion egg after it hatched." However, Zhou had the sky-stealing sun-shifting art, so it wasn't difficult for him to return it. "Alright, come to my house to get it. It's not convenient for me to go out recently," Wang Lu said. "Wait for me." Zhou was overjoyed as he immediately rushed to the Wang family. Zhou left just like that. The officers sent by Hui Haifeng couldn't help but mutter inwardly. They had doubts about whether Zhou could lead them to the top of the rankings. They only believed in Hui Haifeng, but it didn't mean that they had complete trust in Zhou Wen. At the very least, from Zhou Wen's current performance, it didn't make them feel at ease. They had been here for 2 days and had only met Zhou Wen once. After that, they didn't even get to see him. There was no training, no cooperation, or even a plan. When the time came, they had no idea how to attack the Venus dimensional zone together. Anyone in their shoes would feel uneasy. After all, this was a matter of life and death. Captain Wei, do you think this Zhou Wen is reliable? An officer asked Wei Yang in a low voice. Wei Yang was the soldier with a rigid face. His facial features looked like they had been painted on. He was the captain of this special operations team. Without waiting for Wei Yang to return, the officer continued, "The creatures that can enter the rankings are either calamities or large organizations like the Holy Spirit Society and the League of Defender. The Holy Spirit Society has the augmentation of Fairy Peacock and True Martial, as well as an invincible existence like Ya. The League of Defender has the power of time and space as a guarantee. What do we have? Can Zhou Wen really lead us to the top of the rankings?" In fact, it wasn't just him. Many officers had such concerns. Zhou Wen was indeed famous, but compared to large organizations like the Holy Spirit Society and the League of Defender, there was still a certain gap. Furthermore, it seemed difficult for a single person's strength to compete with the collective strength. As soldiers, they could only obey orders, but they would be lying to themselves if they said that they weren't nervous or afraid. Wei Yang said expressionlessly, "Zhou Wen's strength is undoubtedly top-notch among humans. From his past achievements we can tell that this person is definitely not simple. Furthermore, even the president holds him in such high regard. I believe he must be someone with true talent. We don't need to worry about this. We just need to make preparations and help him rush up the rankings. What can we prepare? The president wants us to listen to his orders, but we can't even see him," the officer said gloomily. Wei Yang's expression remained unchanged as he said calmly, "The president has always been meticulous and considerate. If the president says that Zhou Wen can do it, he definitely can. Zhou Wen probably has his own plans for not meeting us now. We just need to adjust our condition and unleash our greatest strength when the time comes." Although the officers were somewhat uneasy, they were influenced by Wei Yang. This uneasiness didn't continue spreading. Instead, it lessened significantly. However, they were still very dissatisfied with Zhou Wen's actions. Zhou Wen rushed to the Wang family overnight. Unfortunately, there were too many dimensional zones on the way. With his abilities, there was no way he could directly reach the Wang family. All he could do was constantly teleport and circle around dimensional zones that hadn't been explored by humans. Thankfully, nothing happened along the way. In less than 2 days, Zhou Wen rushed to the Wang family. When Wang Lu saw Zhou Wen, she curled her lips and said, "If it weren't for borrowing companion beasts, are you planning on not taking the initiative to repay your debts for the rest of your life?" Chapter 13:25. As the saying goes, it's not burdensome to have too much debt. "I'll owe a little more so that I can repay them together later," Zhou Wen said. Wang Lu burst into laughter and rolled her eyes at Zhou Wen. "Which planet's saying is that from?" "Of course it's from Earth," Zhou Wen said. "On Earth, there's only the saying that it's not burdensome to have too much debt," Wang Lu said. "Is that so?" Zhou Wen asked, pretending to be at a loss. "Alright, stop pretending. You're already here today, so you have to return some first," Wang Lu said. "Alright, tell me. Where do you want to eat? I have enough money to eat a bowl of seafood noodles without seafood." After not seeing her for a long time, Zhou Wen didn't feel unfamiliar at all. Wang Lu was still the same Wang Lu from before, as though they had met not long ago. "After all, you're now number 3 in Luoyang. Can you not be so stingy?" Wang Lu said unhappily. "What number 3? Zhou Wen was slightly taken aback. "Apart from Leng Zongjing and in Tianzhua, you are the most important person in Luoyang. If you aren't number 3, what are you? Wang Lu paused for a moment before continuing, let's not stand outside and talk. Let's go in first. Tell me, how do you plan on attacking the Venus dimensional zone? Zhouwen followed Wang Lu into the Wang family's residence, and realized that it was the back door. Inside was a garden, and there was no one around. Wang Lu led the way as Zhouwen recounted Hui Haifeng's request for him to ascend the rankings and his plans. I've never heard of using luck to dodge attacks. Are you confident? If you fail to dodge when facing a calamity-grade creature, only death awaits you, Wang Lu said worriedly. Don't worry. You know me well. I still have other tricks up my sleeves. Even if I can't dodge, I won't be killed. I'll definitely return alive, Zhouwen said confidently. It's good that you have plans. Wang Lu sized up Zhouwen and suddenly said, Extend your hand. What for? Zhouwen asked in puzzlement as he extended his hand in front of Wang Lu. Didn't you want to borrow a companion beast? As Wang Lu spoke, she reached out and pressed her palm against Zhouwen's right palm. A ball of dazzling light suddenly flashed between their palms. What are you doing? Zhouwen was alarmed when he felt waves of energy boring into his palm. He wasn't shocked because he was afraid, but worried for Wang Lu. He originally wanted to borrow Wang Lu's companion egg and return it to her after he was done using it. However, he never expected Wang Lu to transfer the contracted companion beast to him. With the sky-stealing sun-shifting art, transferring a companion beast wasn't a problem. However, Wang Lu didn't know the sky-stealing sun-shifting art. God knew what price she had to pay to transfer a companion beast to Zhouwen. If an ordinary person were to transfer a companion beast, they would lose at least half their life. If they were unlucky, they might even die. Although he knew that Wang Lu likely had some special means, she usually had to pay a certain price. Techniques like the sky-stealing sun-shifting art were too rare. Didn't I want to lend you my pet? Wang Lu said with a smile, but her hands didn't stop moving. The glow in her palm intensified as it constantly transformed into a stream of light that stabbed into Zhouwen's palm. If I had known this would be the case, I wouldn't have come, Zhouwen said with a bitter smile. Now that things were halfway through, it was impossible for Zhouwen to forcefully stop. If he did, not only would he injure Wang Lu, but he would also probably lose the companion beast that had been transferred halfway. It's just transferring a companion beast. It's not difficult for me. However, I definitely have to remember this debt. You will have to return it in the future, Wang Lu said. Zhouwen shook his head and didn't say a word as he waited for the transfer of the companion beast to be completed. The transfer of the companion beast seemed to take a long time. After half an hour, the transfer hadn't been completed. What companion beast is this? Zhouwen felt that something was amiss. However, the energy that had already been transferred wasn't as simple as the mythical stage. Of course it's a lucky companion beast. Can I give you an unlucky companion beast? Wang Lu curled her lips. Terror grade. Zhouwen stared at Wang Lu and asked. That's right. I can't take out a companion beast that's too weak, Wang Lu said. Zhouwen couldn't help but frown. The higher the level of a companion beast, the higher the difficulty of transferring it. The price to transfer a terror-grade companion beast was definitely not small. Now, Zhouwen really regretted it. If anything happened to Wang Lu, he wouldn't be able to bear the responsibility. Almost an hour later, the light in Wang Lu's palm gradually converged until it disappeared. As for Zhouwen's palm, there was an additional star pattern. Are you all right? Zhouwen didn't look at what companion beast it was as he stared at Wang Lu and constantly sized her up. What can happen to me? Are you hoping that I'll vomit blood and faint? Then, you can take the opportunity to be a hero and save the damsel in distress? You'll get both the money and the companion beast. You won't have to return the debt from the past? Wang Lu said with a smile, Stop dreaming. You can't owe me anything less. Seeing that Wang Lu was fine, Zhouwen relaxed a lot. Don't worry. I don't dare say that I'll return it double, but I'll definitely return what I owe. All right, quickly go back and prepare. You can't be careless about this matter. You have to be completely confident. If you feel that something is amiss, don't force yourself, Wang Lu exhorted. Then I'll head back first. After this is done, I'll have a good gathering with you. Zhou stood up and prepared to leave. Wang Lu sent Zhou to the door and waved goodbye. Only when Zhou disappeared from her sight did she turn around. After closing the back door, Wang Lu leaned against the door and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face turned pale as though she had collapsed. She slowly leaned against the door and sat down as though she didn't even have the strength to stand up. The light and shadows in the garden changed as a dreamlike figure walked out of the void. The figure's holy and seductive figure coexisted, like a combination of a devil and an angel. It slowly walked in front of Wang Lu. It was actually a guardian that resembled a goddess from Greek mythology. You're quite a strange person. I've seen many humans. When others do something, they wish for the entire world to know. You paid such a huge price to transfer the lucky star that is of great significance to you to him. Not only did you suffer heavy injuries, you even forced yourself to send him out, aggravating his injuries. Do you have masochistic tendencies? The guardian lifted Wang Lu's chin with her fingers and whispered into her ear with her coquettish red lips. Wang Lu turned her head with all her might and escaped the guardian's fingers. She calmly said, I don't need gratitude or pity, so I naturally don't need him to know something pointless. Then what do you need? That man? As long as you are willing to contract with me and combine our strength, not to mention a man, even all the men in the world will prostrate at your feet with just a glance. A charming glint swirled in the guardian's eyes, but her body emitted a holy glow. She reached out to touch Wang Lu's forehead. Chapter 13:26. Wang Lu reached out to push away the guardian's hand and calmly said, I told you that I won't contract you. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. The guardian wasn't angry. He retracted his hand and said with a smile, Don't forget that you aren't an ordinary person. It's very difficult for others to injure you, but once you are injured, it's very difficult for you to recover. External forces can't treat you either. You can only rely on your own body to slowly heal. I will recover eventually, Wang Lu said. That's right. Although your injuries are very serious, it's not enough to kill you. It's just a little more time. You will recover eventually. The guardian's eyes gradually narrowed. However, you probably haven't been injured much. You don't know what will happen after you are injured. Then let me tell you. After you are injured, your luck ability will decrease. With your current injuries, your luck ability might be so low that it's dispensable. Do you want to take the opportunity to kill me? Then let's do it, Wang Lu said indifferently. Darling, how can I bear to kill you? If I kill you, where can I find another human like you to contract? There shouldn't be a second human in this world who's more suitable to contract with me than you. The guardian's expression gradually turned cold. However, without the suppression of your luck ability, your sister's power of misfortune will have its effects. With my help, I'm afraid only the two of you will be left in the Wang family. Don't you think that will be fun? Wang Lu's expression changed this time. She didn't know that her luck ability would greatly weaken after she was injured because such a thing had never happened before. If it was really as the guardian said, using her strength to strengthen Wang Chan's power of misfortune, the Wang family might really suffer a calamity. Do I have to believe you? Wang Lu forced herself to calm down. Perhaps the guardian was just bluffing and there was no such thing as her luck ability weakening after being injured. You don't believe me? The guardian reached out and flicked a coin into Wang Lu's hand. Then, he said, try throwing 10 times. Under normal circumstances, you should be able to throw flowers 10 times, right? Let me see, how many times can you throw this time? 5 or 6? With your injuries, 6 times should be your limit, right? Wang Lu caught the coin and looked at it before throwing it into the air. When she caught it, she realized that it wasn't a flower, but a huge one. Hee, it seems that your luck ability is much lower than I thought. The protector laughed. Wang Lu's expression changed as she tossed the coin again. She wanted to throw a flower, but when the coin landed, it was still a 1. Wang Lu threw a few times in a row, but she didn't even throw a single trick. All she threw were 1s. The guardian sighed and said, "Even I miscalculated. I never expected your sister's power of misfortune to be so strong. After your power of luck weakened because of her existence, the power of misfortune suppressed your power of luck. Perhaps there's no need for my help. Wang Chan's power can completely bury your Wang family." Wang Lu's expression was extremely ugly. She knew that the guardian was right. The speed at which Wang Chan's power of misfortune improved exceeded everyone's expectations. When her power of luck was still around, she couldn't sense it. Now that her power of luck had been greatly weakened, Wang Chan's power of misfortune appeared. You no longer have any other choice. By contracting me and obtaining the help of my strength, you can recover your body and suppress Wang Chan's power of misfortune, allowing everything to return to normal. Otherwise, even if Wang Chan's strength isn't enough to destroy the Wang family, I will still help her well. The guardian was like a devil. His words seemed to have the allure of an abyss. Wang Lu's expression flickered as she was momentarily unable to make a decision. Suddenly, a shout came from the Wang family compound. It was as though something was on fire. The fire was very intense, and soon, thick smoke could be seen soaring into the sky from the garden. What a powerful power of misfortune! It took effect so quickly. The guardian looked at Wang Lu and continued, "Actually, I don't understand why you aren't willing to contract with me. The guardian contract is an equality contract. I won't affect your body, nor will I hinder your life. However, with my strength, you can do many things that you couldn't do in the past. A contract is beneficial to you." Wang Lu bit her lip and didn't answer. However, when she heard all kinds of shouts coming from the Wang family compound, her eyes gradually lost their determination. The guardian struck while the iron was hot and continued, "Now, if you humans want to become a true expert, there are no more than 3 paths. Using mythical fluid or fusing with a guardian is actually about the same. It will make you half-human. If you want to retain your human body, contracting me is undoubtedly the best choice." "No, there's another path," Wang Lu said. "Oh, what path?" the guardian asked. "Advance to the mythical stage as a human," Wang Lu said. The guardian laughed. "That's just a joke. You humans are born with flaws. It's impossible for you to advance to the mythical stage. Advancing to the mythical stage as a human only exists in the imagination of humans. Don't tell me you really think that's possible?" "I don't think it's possible, but I'm certain that it can succeed. This is because humans have already advanced to the mythical stage with their own abilities," Wang Lu said. "Are you talking about Human Emperor? It's unknown if Human Emperor is pure human, but I guess he's definitely not pure human. At most, he's like ya, half human and half guardian." As the guardian walked towards Wang Lu, he said with a smile, "Instead of having such unrealistic dreams, why don't you think about how to resolve the problem in front of you? I'm your only choice." Wang Lu wanted to say something, but she was interrupted by a voice. "I think it's good to dream. What if it comes true?" A figure appeared out of thin air in front of Wang Lu, blocking the guardian who was about to walk in front of her. "Zhou, why are you?" Although she could only see his back, Wang Lu still recognized Zhou at a glance. "I caused trouble, so of course I have to settle it." If it were in the past, Zhou might have been fooled by Wang Lu, but as Truth Listener's strength became stronger, Wang Lu's disguise in front of him had been betrayed by her intense inner thoughts. However, because Zhou had heard her inner thoughts and knew that her injuries couldn't be treated by external forces, he didn't immediately treat Wang Lu. He never expected such a thing to happen. I'm afraid you can't handle the trouble here. The guardian looked at Zhou and curled his lips. You probably don't know who I am, right? Chapter 13:27. Who are you? Is that important? From my point of view, it doesn't matter who you are, Zhou said calmly. The ignorant are fearless. Do you think I'm one of those trash guardians that teleported over from the dimension? I'm a guardian that survived from the mythical era. Even if you can advance to the Terragrade with the help of the mythical serum, you are just a baby holding a huge saber, the guardian said as she stared at Zhou. Are you done? If you're done, prepare to be on your way, Zhou said as he summoned the Dragon King armor and Shura saber. Zhou knew guardians very well. A truly powerful guardian, even one that had survived from the mythical era, would be suppressed by Earth's laws. Wasn't the drought nirvana awesome? She could only be trapped in the fiend tomb. Without a human contracting her, she was suppressed to the point that she couldn't even leave the fiend tomb. No matter how powerful this guardian was in the past, it was impossible for her to be at the calamity grade since she wasn't suppressed without a contract. At most, she was at the terror grade. You are Thief King? Upon seeing the Dragon King armor and Shura saber, the guardian immediately recognized Zhou and couldn't help but change his expression. The name of the Thief King was so popular on Earth that even the guardians knew of it. The Dragon King armor and Shura saber were like human emperor's dragon-imprisoned armor and immortal culling sword. They were easily recognized. Of course, the emperor's sword was also easily recognized. However, it lacked offensive capabilities, so Zhou usually didn't use it. Thief King had defeated Ye and Immortal consecutively. They were both top Terragrade guardians. Although this guardian believed that she wasn't inferior to them, she didn't dare say that she could definitely win. However, this wasn't the only thing that alarmed the guardian. This was because Zhou was clearly a pure human. Without any external help, he had easily broken through to the Terragrade. Only then did the guardian realize that the person Wang Lu had previously mentioned wasn't human emperor. It was likely Zhou in front of her. Can a pure human really advance to the mythical stage by himself? That's impossible. He must have used some external force. It's just that I can't tell. Perhaps it's a mythical serum that doesn't have obvious characteristics of dimensional creatures, the guardian thought. Zhou didn't wish to speak to her at all as he slashed out with the Shura saber. The protector's figure flickered, and a series of phantoms appeared. In an instant, her figure was everywhere in the courtyard. It was impossible to tell which one was real and which one was fake. The phantoms attacked Zhou from all directions. They all had terrifying auras and powerful essence energy fluctuations. It was impossible to tell which attack was real and which was fake. It was naturally impossible for a single person to defend against all the attacks at the same time. I have the power of omniscient nature. You can't even tell which one is my real body. How are you going to fight me? The phantoms spoke in unison. Even their voices were exactly the same. Zhou's expression didn't change as he ignored all the attacks. The Shura saber slashed at an empty spot. Transcendent flying immortal instantly cleaved a fake mountain into two in a domineering manner. The attacks that filled the sky were like bubbles when they landed on Zhou. They failed to injure him at all. Behind the fake mountain, the guardian widened her eyes in disbelief. Her body retreated uncontrollably as a line of blood slowly spread in the middle of her forehead. After taking a few steps back, her leg touched a rock. Her body immediately split into two, and she fell to the ground, staining the grass beside her with blood. In the myths, even the six-eared macaque of the four chaotic monkeys couldn't fool Truth Listener, much less the guardian. Zhou put away the Shura saber and Dragon King armor. Without looking at the corpse, he came in front of Wang Lu and asked, Is there no other way to recover from your injuries? Wang Lu shook her head. No, the power of luck makes it very difficult for me to be injured. However, once I'm injured, I can only recover on my own. I can't treat it. I've previously tried using pill essences and healing powers, but it was useless. Thank you, Zhou said with a sigh. If it wasn't for lending him a companion beast, Wang Lu wouldn't have been injured. Didn't you help me now? We're even. Wang Lu turned to look at the smoking spot in the Wang family and said anxiously, Now isn't the time to talk about this. I have to think of a way to resolve the bad luck on Little Chan. Leave this to me. I'll take Wang Chan away for a period of time. When you recover, send her back, Zhou said as he flashed away. How can that do? Wang Lu wanted to stop him, but Zhou was already gone. After 5 years, Wang Chan had already grown into a slender and elegant girl. At that moment, Wang Chan was in a state of panic. She could sense that the power of misfortune on her was taking effect. The commotion that was happening in the Wang family was closely related to her power of misfortune. Wang Chan, do you still recognize me? Zhou teleported in front of Wang Chan and called out softly. Zhou. Wang Chan was delighted when she saw Zhou. She wanted to walk over, but she immediately retreated and said anxiously, Don't come over. Leave quickly. Don't approach me. It's dangerous. Don't be afraid. I know there's a problem with you. Your sister got me here to resolve the problem with you. Follow me. Zhou extended his hand in front of Wang Chan. Wang Chan hesitated for a moment before handing her hand to Zhou's palm. Zhou held Wang Chan's hand and used the Singularity Universe's interstellar teleportation ability to arrive on the moon. Stand beside me. Don't go too far. Zhou used Human Emperor's power. The powerful vitality emitted by Human Emperor's power allowed Wang Chan to survive on the moon without dying from a lack of oxygen. Is this the moon? Wang Chan looked around curiously. This place was somewhat different from what she had imagined. Yes, follow me. Zhou led Wang Chan towards Goddess Supreme Yin's temple. Wang Chan's power of misfortune was too strong. It wasn't appropriate for Zhou to bring her anywhere. Therefore, he could only go to Moon God first, hoping that he could ask Goddess Supreme Yin to take Wang Chan in for a period of time. As long as Wang Lu recovered from her injuries and the power of luck worked again, Wang Chan could return. Bam! Zhou didn't walk far when he suddenly kicked his other leg with the tip of his foot, causing him to fall to the ground with his face on the ground. Even Zhou didn't know why he was dazed for a moment and didn't react in time. Zhou, are you alright? Wang Chan hurriedly came over to help Zhou. I'm fine. Just as Zhou said that he was fine, Wang Chan slammed into his face because she wasn't used to the different gravity environment from Earth. Chapter 1328. Thankfully, Zhou's physique was strong enough, so his face was fine. Otherwise, if he were to be hit in the nose, he would probably be so sore that tears would flow out. He might even have a nosebleed. Sorry. Wang Chan apologized repeatedly and didn't dare approach Zhou. She tried her best to maintain a distance. It's fine. Zhou silently summoned his luck companion beasts and wore them. He thought to himself, luck and misfortune are really special abilities. Wang Chan's level isn't high, but she can have such a huge impact. Even I will be affected by her. Perhaps luck can really dodge the 7th strike that will definitely kill me. With this in mind, Zhou thought of the companion beast Wang Lu had transferred to him. He hadn't been in the mood to take a look because of Wang Lu, so he wasn't sure what companion beast it was. Invincible Lucky Star, Terror, Evolvable, Life Providence, Lucky Star Life Soul, Super Lucky Star Wheel of Destiny, Invincible Lucky Starter Transformation, Luck Descend Strength, 99 Speed, 99 Constitution, 99 Essence Energy, 99 Talent Skill, Lucky Wheel, Lucky Moment, Hand of Luck Companion Form. Soul. After Zhou saw its stats, he was stunned. These stats were just too terrifying. It wasn't that Zhou didn't have top-notch terror companion beasts that could evolve, but he really didn't have any that added luck. The crux was that ordinary lucky companion beasts only had a life providence that added luck. This thing actually added luck to every ability. It was simply an excellent grade companion beast with the luck attribute. Just the life providence added 36 luck. Coupled with the augmentation of the life soul, wheel of destiny, and terror transformation, Zhou estimated that his luck would exceed 100. Even if it didn't exceed 100, it definitely reached the limit of his luck. That's not right. Wang Lu doesn't even contract a guardian and hasn't advanced to the mythical stage. How did she get this terror-grade companion beast? Zhou was alarmed. However, with Invincible Lucky Star, a companion beast that could almost be called a divine artifact, he could basically give up on this path if he couldn't dodge the calamity-grade bullet. Unless he had an evasive skill that was even more ridiculous than heavenly robes, it was impossible to dodge. Zhou walked as he looked at his phone. Wang Quan carefully followed behind Zhou, not daring to get too close, afraid that her power of misfortune would affect Zhou. Gua! A huge toad suddenly appeared, giving Wang Quan a fright. She took a few steps back and stepped on Zhou's foot before slamming into him. Sorry. Wang Quan apologized repeatedly. Don't ever say sorry to me again, okay? With my relationship with your sister, there's no need for you to apologize to me. Zhou found Wang Quan somewhat pitiful when he saw her like this. Living under such pressure all the time, one would either explode in despair and become an extremely evil person who disregards everything, or suffer from mental problems due to the constant pressure. It was already pretty good that Wang Quan's heart hadn't changed over the years. When Wang Quan heard that, she widened her eyes at Zhou and asked in surprise, "Could it be that you are going to be my brother-in-law?" Zhou nearly choked on his saliva. After taking a deep breath, he said, "I'm saying that I have a good relationship with your sister. She has helped me a lot, so you don't have to stand on ceremony with me." With that said, Zhou was just about to greet Chang Yi when Chang Yi flicked out her tongue and swept Zhou and Wang Quan over. She placed them on her back and headed for Goddess Supreme Yin's temple. Soon, the two of them arrived in front of Goddess Supreme Yin's temple. "Goddess, I'm here to see you." Zhou got off the toad's back and shouted into the temple. "How are you here to see me? You want my life?" Goddess Supreme Yin's unfriendly voice sounded from inside. "Goddess, what do you mean?" Zhou pretended not to know. Goddess Supreme Yin said coldly, "Did you bring a natural calamity body to my moon because you think I'm living too comfortably on the moon? Do you want the moon to explode on the spot?" "Goddess, you're being too serious. She's just a little lass. She's not as powerful as you say. You're so resourceful. Didn't you easily resolve a small problem like hers?" Zhou flattered him, but his flattery clearly wasn't good. Goddess Supreme smiled and said, "It's been hard on you. It's obvious that you haven't flattered anyone before. Your flattery is too fake. However, since you've said so, leave her behind." "You really agree?" Zhou was slightly taken aback. He never expected Goddess Supreme Yin to be so agreeable. "Why? You want to take her away?" Goddess Supreme Yin said with a faint smile. "I don't mean that. I just feel that her physique is a little special after all. Won't she cause you trouble if she stays here? Actually, I have a golden apple that can change one's life providence. I just want to borrow your place to change her life providence here?" Zhou said as he took out the golden apple. This thing had always been useless to him. Wang Quan's life providence wasn't very good. Even if he settled it this time, there would be another problem if Wang Lu was injured again. Change her life providence? Was your head kicked by a donkey? Or did you get hit in the head by a door when you were young? You want to change the rare innate calamity physique? Goddess Tyene said angrily. Although this thing is very rare, It only has disadvantages and no benefit. What's the point of keeping it? Zhou could tell from Goddess Supreme Yin's words that Wang Chan's body of misfortune wasn't simple, so he deliberately said that. Goddess Supreme Yin said, "You are really ignorant. Don't you know the logic of extreme yang giving rise to yin, and extreme yin giving rise to yang? The calamity body doesn't seem to have any benefits, but don't you think about it? As the owner of the calamity body, she has never been affected? Is this normal? I'm just an ignorant mortal. Please give me some pointers, Goddess." Zhou was secretly delighted. He never expected to find someone who knew the rope. If he could resolve Wang Chan's problem, he would have an explanation when he met Wang Lu. "You've finally said something pleasant." Goddess Supreme Yin pushed open the door and walked out. She sized up Wang Chan and said, "In the division of dimensional creatures, there's no mortal, legendary, or epic. There's only one mythical level. However, mythical levels are also divided. Terror, calamity, and apocalypse. These are the three levels of the mythical stage. Your so-called mythical stage is only the initial form of the mythical stage." "I know all that," Zhou said. "Since you know all that, then tell me." Goddess Supreme Yin rolled her eyes at him. "Continue." "I'll shut up." Zhou shut his mouth. "But be it terror, calamity, or apocalypse, do you know the source of these?" Goddess Supreme Yin didn't let Zhou speak, but she asked him again. Zhou closed his mouth and shook his head. "That's calamity. Only when humans encounter calamity will they feel fear. Only then will they realize how terrifying a calamity is. Only then will they fear the arrival of the apocalypse. In essence, calamity is actually the source of the mythical stage. Now, do you understand how precious calamity is?" Goddess Supreme Yin said. Chapter 1329. This was also the first time Wang Chan had heard someone say that her calamity body was good. This was something that had never happened before. Wang Chan widened her eyes as she looked at Goddess Supreme Yin, filled with anticipation and fear of disappointment. "Goddess, according to what you said, wouldn't Wang Chan, who has a calamity body, be very powerful? Then, can she advance to the calamity or apocalypse stage with her calamity body in the future?" Zhou asked on Wang Chan's behalf. To his surprise, Goddess Supreme Yin rolled her eyes at him and said, "What are you thinking about? I only said that the calamity attribute is very precious, but I didn't say that having a calamity body is definitely very strong. You humans can't even reach the mythical stage, much less the calamity stage." Midway through her sentence, Goddess Supreme Yin glanced at Zhou and suddenly paused before continuing. "Generally speaking, it's unlikely for humans to advance to the mythical stage unless they use external help. Let's put it this way. Calamity, hope, luck, and lustful attributes are very precious and special attributes. With these attributes, one is innately much stronger than ordinary people. They have greater potential, but how far they can go ultimately depends on their personal cultivation," Goddess Supreme Yin explained. Wang Chan revealed a disappointed expression when she heard Goddess Supreme Yin's words. Since it was very difficult for her to advance to the mythical stage like ordinary people, and the power of the calamity body would only grow stronger and affect the people around her more and more, it was useless no matter how strong the attribute was. "Goddess, although the calamity attribute is very strong, it has a very bad effect on the people around you. Is there any way to resolve this effect?" Zhou hurriedly asked. "It's impossible to completely eliminate the effect. However, it's not difficult to control it a little without causing too much trouble," Goddess Supreme Yin said confidently. Zhou and Wang Chan were overjoyed. Wang Chan knelt down and kowtowed to Goddess Supreme Yin, but before she could kowtow, she was lifted up by an invisible force. "Don't kowtow to me. I still want to live for a few more years." Goddess Supreme Yin turned to Zhou and said, "Take your golden apple with you and scram as far as you can. Leave this young lady to me." Goddess Supreme Yin left Wang Chan behind. Wang Chan, are you willing to stay? Zhou asked for Wang Chan's permission first. I want to stay. Wang Chan was very opinionated. Since Wang Chan volunteered to stay, Zhou didn't say anything else. He stayed on the moon for another day. Firstly, he wanted to see how Goddess Supreme Yin planned on modifying Wang Chan. Secondly, he wanted to test if the invincible lucky star was useful. After entering the game again, Zhou put on all the lucky companion beasts he could wear, including invincible lucky star. He also summoned those he couldn't wear to boost his courage. He saw the metal guard and golden battle god again. Just like before, Zhou didn't move at all. Just his heavenly robe fluttered and he dodged all the bullet. However, the true test had just begun. When the calamity-grade gunshot sounded, Zhou heart nearly jumped out of his chest. I dodged it. Zhou saw the heavenly robe move without any wind as it dodged the calamity-grade bullet with the blood-colored avatar's body. But that didn't prove anything. He had dodged the first 2 shots, but he was still killed in the end. Shot after shot, 6 consecutive shots hit empty air. None of them hit the blood-colored avatar's body. The crucial 7th strike is finally here. Can I dodge it? Zhou was extremely nervous. Bam! The gunshot sounded again. Zhou had already used all his means, but he couldn't see the trajectory of the 7th shot. However, after the gunshot, Zhou saw a white halo appear around the blood-colored avatar. It was like a large hula hoop around the blood-colored avatar's body. It floated around the blood-colored avatar's chest, but it failed to injure the blood-colored avatar at all. Zhou took a careful look and was immediately alarmed. It wasn't a halo at all, but the 7th bullet. It circled the blood-colored avatar at the speed of light, but it couldn't touch the blood-colored avatar's body. This is the power of the heavenly robe augmented by invincible lucky star? Zhou was pleasantly surprised. The 7th shot didn't drop unless it killed. Now, the 7th bullet was still flying at the speed of light in a bid to approach the blood-colored avatar's body. However, every time the bullet approached the blood-colored avatar, the heavenly robe would wield its power and deflect Zhou's body. The bullet couldn't hit its target, so it could only chase after the blood-colored avatar. Therefore, it looked like a halo. Boom! The calamity-grade gunshot sounded again, but it still couldn't touch Zhou. The bullets that shot over were all dodged by the heavenly robe. Zhou didn't leave. He stood there and experimented. He wanted to know how many shots he could dodge with the invincible lucky star and other lucky equipment. He wanted to know how likely it was to achieve such an effect. The outcome delighted Zhou even more. After the second round of 7 bullets was fired, it still failed to hit the blood-colored avatar protected by the heavenly robe. The 7th bullet of the second round was like the first round of bullet. It constantly circled the blood-colored avatar's body, but it failed to injure it. Zhou experimented again and again, and the outcome left him pleasantly surprised. He dodged 6 rounds of bullets in a row. Up to now, not a single sure-kill bullet could injure the blood-colored avatar. Instead, the blood-colored avatar seemed to have 6 halos around it. This left Zhou somewhat depressed. The bullets kept circling him in a bid to take his life. A single mistake could lead to an irreversible outcome. This worry was just too heavy. No one knew if the bullets would shoot into the blood-colored avatar's body in the next second. With such powerful dodging abilities, it wasn't difficult to reach the Golden Palace's door. Even an ordinary person could complete the mission. Unfortunately, there was no such thing as a reward for reaching the Golden Palace in-game. It was useless even if Zhou reached it. Seeing that Wang Chan had nothing special to do on the moon and wasn't in any danger, Zhou got up and returned to Earth. Now, he was filled with confidence. He was completely confident that he could bring Hui Haifeng and the others up the rankings, so there was no need for him to waste any more time. After returning to Earth, Zhou sent Wang Lu a message to tell her not to worry about Wang Chan. He then explained the general situation to her. Upon hearing that Wang Chan was fine and that she might be able to stop the calamity powers on her, Wang Lu was equally delighted. She even exhorted Zhou Wen to be careful. She was fine and told him not to worry. Only then did Zhou Wen heave a sigh of relief, but he had something else on his mind. I have to end this after all. Zhou Wen's luck wasn't good. He traveled for nearly 72 hours before returning to Luoyang. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.